Welcome to the December 7th Troy City Council meeting. We would ask that if you have a cell phone or electronic device that you turn it off at this time as it interferes with our sound system. And I need to inquire, is Mark Bybeck here from Kensington Community Church? Since he is not, we will have our Mayor Pro Tem give our invocation, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Let us pray. Father, we're indeed so thankful to live in such a wonderful country, Father, in such a wonderful city, Father. We just thank you for all the blessings you've given us, Lord. And Lord, we just ask your guidance and direction and wisdom throughout this meeting, Father. We know that you're not the author of confusion, but everything that you do is perfect and in order. So we just pray that tonight this meeting will be in order, Father, and we'll just give you the honor and the glory for it. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Fleming. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Here.
Councilmember Beltramini? Present. Fleming?
Here.
Howard-Lack?
Here.
Curran?
Here.
McGinnis?
Here.
Slater?
Here.
Quorum present. This evening we begin with certificates presentations, and we're going to begin with our museum manager, Lorraine Campbell, on the book Fire Calls and Station Stories, an Illustrated History of Troy's Volunteer Fire Department. And I've really been looking forward to this one, and I hope we're going to have copies for sale in time for people to buy them for Christmas. Now. Good.
Yes, at the museum.
Good. I need to get some. Thank you.
She's talking.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I would like to present to you a new book, Fire Calls and Station Stories, that is the result of a 2-year partnership between the Troy Museum staff, a committee of retired firefighters representing our 6 stations, and a member of the Fire Auxiliary, the Troy Historical Society, and Chief Nelson in the Fire Department. I need the... The book was the brainchild of Fred Barnard, and I don't think he requires an introduction. It was Fred's idea to write a history of the department and to have the proceeds from the sale of this book support the Troy Historical Society's Heritage Campaign to expand the museum, including the relocation and restoration of the Niles Barnard House. The committee of 10 very dedicated volunteers that Fred recruited worked with me and the museum archivist, Bill Boardman, to collect over 500 photographs, some of which you are seeing on the screen. And they have been scanned and added to the museum's archive collection. The volunteers also researched publishing companies and raised all of the funds for the first printing of 500 copies of the book. There was consensus by this committee and the staff that the book should not be about fire trucks or equipment or even about just putting fires out. Rather, it's the story of the culture of our volunteers who value community service and public safety and who commit themselves to that call. Now, during the last 2 years, that group has combed through 50 years of newspaper clippings. We have conducted and collected over 10 hours of taped interviews and partnered with Community Affairs to tape a terrific talking history with Chief Jim Halsey, our retired fire chief. The museum staff scanned all the photographs and edited them, wrote the text, and completed the layout. The finished product, which Fred is holding, is a 100-page book that includes 120 images. It's available for sale, yes, at the Troy Museum gift shop and at our Community Affairs office for $28, including tax, just in time for Christmas. I want to say that I am indebted to Chief Nelson and his staff for their time and their information and their support for the project from day one. And also I'm indebted to Fred for his terrific idea and the dedication and hard work that he put into this project every day. And to the retirees who donated their time and their stories and their passion. They were remarkable. I don't know if any of them are here tonight, but if they are, I'd want you to have them stand up and give you a cheer. Also, I want to thank the museum staff for their professionalism, because they created a truly professional product from its text through the illustrations and the photographs. The museum now has a comprehensive collection of fire department information which will be available to this community in perpetuity, and that's important. Our community has a new and wonderful book just in time for the holidays, and the Troy Historical Society has another source of revenue to support their vision for the museum. So I hope I see each and every one of you at the museum with your credit card or your checkbook, ready to add this book to your personal libraries or to someone on your gift list, their library. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you making the presentation, and I am very moved by the ability for all the people to have an opportunity to buy this book and to share it with their families and their children. I think that the wonderful heritage of our fire department in Troy that has been passed on. Some of the families, we have the fourth generation that are
You're showing the different generations.
and I think that that is a wonderful opportunity for people to know that, and we are really blessed to have that happen here. And thank you for the vision of doing that, Fred. I know you had a lot of people working with you to produce the book, but having the idea in the first place was wonderful. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have a presentation of awards for the 2008 financial documents by the Government Finance Officers Association. That's the GFOA. And Mr. Lamorato.
Mayor and City Council, tonight we are here to accept 3 of the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, all 3 awards that they do issue for our 10th consecutive year. The first award is for the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's for our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR, which you received tonight also for this current year. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. The CAFR has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, including demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure, to clearly communicate its financial story, and to motivate potential users and user groups to read the CAFR. In Michigan, only 3.5% of all the cities receive this award. This marks the 12th year in a row that the city has received this prestigious award. I'd like to have the finance team come forward and receive this award. It couldn't have been accomplished without their complete support and ethics of this work group. James Nash, our Financial Services Director, Anita Elfren, Tina James. We also have a few members that couldn't make it tonight. The second award is for our Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. The award represents a significant achievement by the entity. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff in meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive this award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation These guidelines are designed to assess how well an entity's budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communication device. This marks the 11th year in a row that the city has achieved this prestigious award. I'd like to call up members of the city manager's office who helped assemble and prepare this fine document. Mary Redden and Beth Ashnick of the manager's office, who spent a lot of hours putting together that document. And the last award is for the Outstanding Achievement in Popular Annual Financial Reporting. This award is for financial reporting, and it's a prestigious national award recognizing conformance with the highest standards for preparation of state and local government's popular reports. In order to receive an award for outstanding achievement, a government unit must publish a popular annual financial report whose contents conform to the program's standards of creativity, presentation, understandability, and reader appeal. The governmental unit must also receive the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. This marks the 10th consecutive year the city has received this award. I'd like to call forward Beth Tashnick from the manager's office to receive this award. Beth assisted with her creative skills in putting the financial results of the city into an easily readable document. And there are only 3 cities in the state of Michigan that have received all 3 GFOA awards.
Thank you, Mr. Lamoretto. Each year when you make the announcements here at the council meeting about the recognition of the awards from the Government Finance Officers Association, the council, staff, and the citizenry are always greatly impressed because these awards are not easy to come by, and with having only 3 cities in all the cities in Michigan, only 3 to receive all of these, it certainly speaks volumes for the quality of our staff and the hard work and dedication that's gone into the budgets year after year after year after year. So we truly appreciate that. Next, we're going to have the presentation of the Independent Auditor's Report for the fiscal year of June 30th, 2009 by Gerald Deslover of the Raymond Robson Group. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Jerry Deslover. I'm a partner with Raymond Robson, and it's our pleasure to present the opinions that we presented on the financial statements. And I agree with you, that's quite an accomplishment to have all those awards.
Thank you.
First of all, we're talking about audit responsibility. The management's responsibility, obviously, is to prepare the statements. And then we take those statements and review those, review the internal controls with respect to the financial reporting, and then issue our opinions on those financial statements. There are a number of opinions in those financial statements. The first one is the opinion on the financial statements themselves. And it's called a clean opinion or unqualified opinion, which means there's nothing wrong with the financial statements. And that's the type of opinion that you want. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide you. And it basically says that the statements are in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. And that is a very important part of receiving those awards as well. In addition to that, we're required to give you an opinion, and that's on page 129 with respect to government auditing standards. Not all cities receive that as well. We're required because you do have a single audit that we have to audit in accordance with government audit standards, and that requires an opinion on compliance at the financial statement level and also on internal control. So that report is in here, and the significance of that is there were no findings or question cost in that report. The other report is the one I referred to on what's called OMB A133 on page 131, and that is required by the federal government that you have an audit in compliance with their requirements for the federal money that you receive. Again, we have an unqualified opinion. There were no question costs. For instance, if you had question costs, you'd have to pay those back. There are a number of rules that are required to be followed. We followed those rules, and we did not find any exceptions to that. Other matters, we did issue a letter with respect to the assumptions that were made. There was one recommendation this year. I'm sure you've looked at that. Basically, it's review of account reconciliations and documenting that, so there's an audit trail so we can see that it's being done. While it was being done, we didn't see the evidence that it was signed off, so that is a recommendation for you to take under advisement. With that, we thank you and appreciate the opportunity to serve the city. So, any questions at all?
Council members, do you have any questions at this time? No? Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate the presentation. And Mr. Lamorato is going to present the audit recap.
What I'd like to do, Mayor and City Council, is just take a few minutes and go over some of the important pages in the CAFR, the audit report that you should have in front of you. And if we could just turn first to page Roman numeral 1. The comprehensive annual financial report is broken down into 4 sections. We have our introductory section, a financial section, statistical, and a single audit. Going to page Roman numeral 7, that starts off with our letter of transmittal, which basically says this is a report for our year ended June 30th, 2009, and as the financial condition of various funds as of the end of that year. Moving along to page Roman numeral 11, we talk about several different fund groups that we have. And I'll talk about the general fund in a little bit more detail at the end, but to spend a little bit more time on that. But some of the special revenue funds we have, our Major Streets Fund, which receives gas and weight taxes from the state of Michigan. It's used for the repairs and maintenance of our major roads, snow removal, and so forth. These gas and weight taxes generated about $3.4 million this past year. That's compared to $3.5 million the year before. This marks the 5th year in a row of a decrease in this source of revenue for the maintenance of our roads. Local streets received $1.3 million compared to $1.4 million last year. Once again, another reduction. In our refuse fund, we've had quite a few discussions on this at budget time, but this is established to account for property tax revenues that are restricted for that purpose of garbage collection and recycling. We had revenues of $3.6 million this past year and expenditures of $4 million. And at June 30th, we had a fund balance of $190,000. Of that $190,000, we reappropriated $150,000 for this current year's budget. So this item will be up for discussion again this budget year, and as we have a decrease in property values and so forth, there's going to be a need to address this. Our Community Development Block Grant Fund, we received about $195,000 in federal grants used for various projects approved by council. In our Budget Stabilization Fund, at June 30th, we had $2.1 million in that. You may recall we did appropriate $300,000 of that in this current year to help us get by. They also transferred, the interest earnings from that fund gets transferred to the general fund, and we had interest earnings of $54,000 that were transferred to the general fund. As far as the enterprise operations, we have several funds. One of the major one is the water fund. We had operating revenues of $13.2 million, which is actually a decrease of $2.5 million from this last year, and operating expenses of $12.7 million, which is a decrease of $1 million from last fiscal year. As we all know, the economy and weather conditions had a significant effect on our water consumption this past year. But our rates, as established, do provide for our operations. As you can see, we had revenues over expenditures, and also provide funding for improvements to our system, which this past year we spent $4.2 million in improvements to our water system. We're able to do that without issuing bonds because our rate structure provides for that. Sanitary sewer fund generated $9.8 million in revenue compared to $11.6 last year, once again tied to our water consumption decrease. Operating expenses totaled $9 million compared to $9.6 million last year. And in here we spent a little over $1 million on improvements to the system. The Aquatic Center operated a loss of $115,000 compared to a loss of $150,000 last year. Operating revenues increased by a little over $48,000, and our operating expenses increased by $13,000. Without depreciation is one way we like to look at this for operation-wise, is that without depreciation they would have had $50,000 in income over expenditures. Sylvan Glen Golf Course Fund ended the year with an increase in net assets of $105,000. Last year they had an increase of $108,000. Sanctuary Lake Golf Course Fund had a decrease in net assets of $716,000. This compared to a decrease of $635,000 last year. As far as actual cash flow implications of that, there's about $686,000 in cash flow, a shortage in cash flow for that operation. It's been a tough little project. We're working on ways to try to do it. We just went out for RFPs for the operating and maintaining of both golf courses, which we are starting to review at this time and see what if that could generate any savings in that area to try to lower that cost. Sylvan Glen seems to be doing fine. The debt service on Sanctuary Lake is a problem to try to cover all that cost. We are looking at that, and we're hoping that these proposals may give us some guidance there and see how they have what their revenue projections are and expenses for operation of those two courses, and hopefully that might help out the situation there at Sanctuary Lake. As far as our fiduciary funds, we have our pension trust fund. End of the year net assets held in trust for pensions is about $141 million compared to a beginning amount of about $164.7 million. As of December 31st, 2008, the fund is roughly 102% funded. Our pension trust for our fire incentive reserve fund is about 48.1% funded. We leveled off. We did not have a big reduction this past year, and they have about $5.6 million in funds for that retirement plan. Our retiree health care trust fund, which we established in 2006 for medical benefits provided to employees during retirement, we've accumulated about $12.2 million in that fund, and we're 41.4% funded, which, in talking to our actuaries and auditors and so forth, we're probably in the top 10% of the whole state, probably one of the top communities in the state as a funded position for retiree health care. We also have a portion of our retirement system accounts for about $40 million of those funds are earmarked for retiree health care. And to further reduce our future retiree health care liabilities, we've gone to a retiree health savings account. Now it's in place for all new hires, and we started doing that several years ago. We also have in our audit report our Downtown Development Authority, the Local Development Financing Authority, and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, their financial statements. Page Roman numeral 14. Debt administration at June 30th, we had $33.3 million in outstanding bonds and for governmental funds, and $11 million for proprietary funds, which is Sanctuary Lake. Two major rating agencies, Fitch and Standard & Poor's, are still maintaining our AAA bond rating for our unlimited tax general obligation bonds. Moody's, we have a rating of AA1 for our unlimited general obligation bonds. As was stated earlier, we have a city charter and state statutes require an annual audit of the city by independent certified public accountants. The accounting firm Raymond Robson was selected by the city. And once again, we received an unqualified opinion from Raymond Robson, which is the best opinion an organization can receive. I already talked a little bit about the awards that we received, and Just want to cover a few more pages. Going to page 37 in our notes to the financial statement. We have the State Construction Code Act is a law that requires a collection of all our building permit fees and inspection fees, that they have to be used for those costs to provide those services. And they don't want you to generate more than what you can do. But we, by far, don't have that problem here, and most cities don't. With the downturn in the economy and the reduction in the permits and building activity going on, we had current year building revenue of about $1.2 million and expenditures to provide that service of about $2.3 million. We had a $1.1 million shortfall as of June 30, 2009, and when it started in July 2001, you accumulate these from year to year. So now we're at a accumulated shortfall of about $5.7 million in providing those services. We have taken some recent steps regarding the staffing and so forth in those areas. We don't have the volume of work and so forth. Those are areas that we had to look at, make some reductions. We're also looking at a new methodology to calculate the fees. Obviously, you're never going to be able to get that. It's more of a fee for that service provided, and try to attach the fee for those inspections. And we're looking at that and try to come up with a new fee structure for this next budget to come a little closer to covering our actual costs for that operation. Just to give you an idea, in 2009 we had building permits, 1,251 permits, about $99 million in value of construction. In 2000, we had 2,190 permits and $256 million in new value of construction. So obviously we know what things aren't going to be. We are a fairly built-out city, so unless we have a lot of major redevelopment and the economy picks up here, people are not doing a lot of improvements to their homes. We're not getting new, larger construction buildings and development going on. So until that turns around, we're trying to size our staff appropriately for this. Going all the way back, and in between there are all the various statements of all the various funds, individual balance sheet and the income statements. I'm not going to go over all those. But we do have on page 103, we start our statistical section. And this gives a lot of information, a lot of 10-year trend information. And I always say that, I keep this very handy for people that have questions. And council, just one document that you can keep that, and it's online also, but to keep this, because you can get a lot of information here on voter turnouts, on water consumptions, on personnel, on whatever you want. Tax rates going back 10 years, everything else is all included in here. What debt we have outstanding, a lot of operating information and financial trend information. But I'd just like to point out a couple of them. On page 109, we show the property tax levies and collections for the last 10 fiscal years. And you can see Troy and the residents and businesses of Troy have always paid their taxes. Even in these difficult times, for June 30, 2009, over 99% of our taxes were paid on time. Last year it was just 99.9%, and we're right at 99 to 100% paid going back the last 10 years. So that's important to keep in mind. Page 112 talks about our top 10 principal taxpayers the current year, and looking back 10 years ago to see if they're still the same ones or what kind of movement we've had. And there's several of them that are still, that were the top 10 years ago and currently. But it's important to notice out of our top 10, our biggest taxpayer only makes up 1.28% of our total taxable value, which is amazing for any community to have that. No one's going to come near that. And our top 10 only make up about 7% of our total taxable value. It shows a very diversified tax base, and that does help us out when we look at for bond ratings and so forth, that we do have a very diversified tax base. And not any one company. A long time ago when Kmart used to be one of the top ones, they said, well, what happens if you lose Kmart? Well, Kmart was 0.8% of our tax base. So we said, well, we don't want to lose them. Obviously, we don't want to lose them, but it's not going to cripple the city. Now, if you had that in a smaller city or a city that didn't have our tax base, it would be devastating to them. On Page 122, just look at our refuse and resource recovery, the tons of refuse collected. And my father was always involved in the refuse business for a number of years, and he always said you can tell how the economy is going by the refuse collection. And you could tell the last 4 years it's gone down every year. This past year we had probably the lowest we've had in a long time of roughly 33,000 tons of refuse collected. The year before it was 35, the year before that 45, the year before that 55. So you could say it's just a sign of the economy. People are not generating as much and buying as much. You could tell that was one of his major signs of how the economy is actually going. And just golf course, Sanctuary Lake, the rounds of golf, actually we improved by over 1,000 rounds this last year. We wanted to try to get the revenue, did not quite go up as much because we wanted to get people out there, and we had some incentive programs working there to try to get more people out to the course. And this year we stopped some of those incentives, but it worked in one sense of getting about 1,000 more rounds out there and people to enjoy the course. Page 127 looks at state shared revenue and gas and weight taxes for the last 10 years. And here you can see in state shared revenue for 2009 we received $6.3 million. In 2002, which was our highest year we received, we were at $8.3 million. We have a $2 million reduction in what we used to get per year in state shared revenue. We've absorbed that $2 million, and this year is $2 million, and years is 1.7, 1.6, 1.5, 1 million. We've absorbed all of those reductions without increasing our tax rate in the city of Troy, which it makes you look at your whole operations there. When you could absorb $2 million in reductions without lowering your tax rate, it means that everybody's doing their job here. Gas and weight taxes, you can see a 10-year history. The last 5 years, it's gone down. We received 4.7 in total this past year. 2005, we received $5.1 million. That is a problem, and we need the legislature to come up with a new idea on how to fund the roads and road maintenance. It's been up for discussion. They keep extending it another year or so, but what happens in the meantime, as the price of fuel goes up, as you get more fuel-efficient vehicles in the economy and so forth, you're getting less usage. And we have a strict $1 per gallon. So if you're using less, it's not based on the price. It's based on the actual gallons consumed. So you use less gas, we get less money. And that's going to really start affecting us, where right now we're getting very close to the money that they give us for local road maintenance alone to cover the actual cost of local road maintenance. The last section just talks about, that's our single audit section, which goes over our federal awards and the accounting for those. Any questions in general on this report? Then I'm going to go over the general fund real quickly.
Council, questions? Thank you. Going to go over.
Okay, this is a PowerPoint that was handed out. You should have that. I'd like to spend just a little bit more time on our general fund, our main operating fund for the city. And first slide goes over our general fund revenue, budget, and actual. In 2008-9, we had general fund revenue of $59.9 million. This compared to last year, we had $61.4 million in revenue. So we operated on $1.5 million less in revenue for this past current year. The general fund has operated on approximately the same amount of revenue for the last 5 years. You can see in 2005, we had revenues of $59.4 million. 2009, we're at $59.9 million. And our actual revenue came in at $1.2 million under our budget. Now, I'll get into an explanation of why that happened. Next slide looks at our general fund revenue by source, budget and actual. The property taxes came right in line with budget, about $36.5 million in revenue. Our licenses and permits, we received $1.2 million. That came in $600,000 under budget. Even with some rate increases last year and the fees, and just the volume is just not there to generate. That was one of the major sources. Intergovernmental is the second major area, and we all know that state shared revenue was a major portion of that reduction. In total, we were down $600,000 in intergovernmental revenue from the budget. When the state makes changes in the middle of our fiscal year, our budget's been adopted, and like it did for this current year we're in right now, where we have another reduction from that. We keep an eye on that, and we have to try to reduce our expenditures correspondingly to those reductions, and take a look at all our other revenue sources. But when it comes, depends on what time of the year it comes. If it comes like this last time, when you hear in May or June or whatever, that there's these reductions. Well, it doesn't give you a lot of time to make up that. Charges for services were $7.2 million. Those are right on. We were about $13,000 over our budget. Fines and forfeitures, $1.1 million. We were $7,000 over budget. Investment earnings, about $719,000. We were a little over $100,000 over our budget. Other revenue sources, $1.5 million. That was about $100,000 over our budget. And operating transfers in, $4.8 million. That's about $300,000 under what our budget was. Looking at the general fund revenues by source, we like to track basically from year to year to see what changes in the makeup of our revenue. And we have property taxes, went up 1%, actually went up to 61% of our general fund revenue for this past year compared to 60% the year before. Licenses and permits make up 2% this past year and the year before. Intergovernmental went down to 11% from 12% of our total revenue. Charges for services stayed the same at 12%. Fines and forfeitures stayed the same at 2%. Investment income stayed the same at 1%. Miscellaneous revenue went up 3% from 2%, and operating transfers in went down from 8%, was down from 9%. Those are the various major revenue sources for the general fund. Looking at the general fund expenditures, budget and actual, we had general fund expenditures of $62.3 million versus $62.7 million last year. $400,000 reduction in actual expenditures year to year. And the actual expenditures came in $2.9 million under budget. This is 2 years in a row that we've spent less money than the previous year. 2007, we had expenditures of $63 million, 2008, $62.7 million, and 2009, $62.3. So we have been reducing our budget accordingly with our reduction in revenues. We've also been reducing our expenditures. General fund expenditures by function, budget and actual. The four major categories we have are general government, about $9.2 million in expenditures. Public safety, $31 million. Public works, $8.2 million. And recreation and culture, $13.8 million. All major functions came in under budget. And a lot of these savings were due to our retirement incentives and layoffs that we had during this past year, during the year, which was able to save some funds. General fund expenditures by function. General government, once again, 15% of the total budget goes for general government. Public safety went up 50% of our budget versus 49% the year before. Roads and streets remained at 9% of our expenditures in the general fund. Public works, 4%, stayed the same. Parks and recreation, 15%. And library and museum went down at 7% versus 8% the year before. Next slide, take a look at our general fund revenues and expenditures. We had expenditures over revenues by $2.4 million. You may recall, though, that at first glance I would say, well, you spent more than you took in. Well, you may recall that in last year's budget we reappropriated $4.1 million in our fund balance to balance out that budget. We did not need to use all of that reappropriation. We used about $1.7 million of that reappropriation So we had a savings there in that sense, that if you were able to count it and show that as a revenue source, then we would have had revenues over expenditures by $1.7 million. The general fund balance. We have total fund balance of $21.3 million versus $23.6 million last year. There are three components of our fund balance: reserved, unreserved, designated, and undesignated. In the reserved, we have $624,000 for inventory and prepaid items. Unreserved designated, we have $10.2 million for insurance claims, tax appeals, volunteer fire incentive program, and improvements and maintenance reserves. And in undesignated, we have $10.5 million, which equates to 17% of our general fund budget. The change in the unreserved designated and the undesignated is due to not using any fund balance this current fiscal year to balance our budget. And so what happens in that case is that when you do use fund balance, it then becomes a designated portion of your fund balance reserves. This year we do not have any fund balance to balance the budget, so that's why the undesignated went up and the unreserved designated went down a little bit. On the last page, once again, we received a certificate for this current year, our 12th year in a row. We're going to submit this report again for consideration. The formal receipt of this report is in the reports and communications section of the agenda. And copies of the report are available for sale at the city clerk's office and can be viewed on the city's website and at the library. If there's any questions or?
Questions for Mr. Lamorato at this time? On that? Thank you, Mr. Lamorato. We appreciate it. We go now to the regular agenda. There are no carryover items tonight or public hearings. And so we go right to the public comment portion of the agenda. And for those folks who are new or have not been to council for a while, we have a public comment section for allowing for 5 minutes for a speaker that they may speak on any items, postponed, regular business, or consent agenda items, or items that are not on the agenda, and that is permitted under the Open Meetings Act during the public comment portion of the agenda. If we'd had a public hearing item tonight, folks could speak additionally on that public hearing, but we do not have a public hearing tonight. Several folks who signed up under an agenda item number out on the kiosk, I will call on you during this section, and then you can speak on that item and any others if you so desire. So I'll go down the list here. The first person that signed up was Janice Daniels. And Janice, you signed up in 2 sections, but do you understand that our rules of procedure, you have 5 minutes and you can speak on any item that you wish. It can be an agenda item or others. Okay?
I think I signed up for a non-agenda item, and then
Yes.
I was informed that it was an agenda
Right.
item.
I'm
which
just
is-
explaining it because for some people this is a change and it's new, so I want to make sure everybody understands.
I see. No, I'm
And
fine
feel
with it.
free to adjust the mic if you wish to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Janice Daniels, and I'm here to make comments about the special election for the millage increase in the brochure that's been proposed to announce the benefits or costs to the residents of the city of Troy. I begin my comments with the utmost respect for the task that you have at hand. Developing a budget for the city of Troy cannot be an easy thing to do, nor is it easy in these difficult economic times for us to balance our own budget, our own family budgets. And I would submit that if I went to my boss tomorrow and I suggested that because I couldn't balance my family budget, I need him to give me more money, he would do one of 2 things. 1, he would laugh at me. 2, he would suggest that if I bring more business in, he would give me more money. And I would respectfully suggest that if the council could bring more business into Troy, you could get your tax revenue increase that you need. My property values are decreasing. No, they're plummeting. And while my property value is plummeting, I want my property taxes to go down accordingly, not up. I noticed on the website that there's a brochure that's been prepared to give the benefits and the costs to the citizens. It'll be mailed out before the election in February. And there's a cover letter that says that this was drafted to further explain the ballot question in an unbiased manner. With, again, all due respect, I would like to know what dictionary the city administrators are using when they call this unbiased. This is extremely biased, and it uses scare tactics, which offend me, and it also uses vague and nebulous concepts to try to encourage people to vote for a tax increase that they might otherwise not really want to do. For example, I'd like to make a few points. First of all, you say you have two columns. A yes vote means that we'll maintain a high level of police service and we'll maintain a high level of fire department service. And a no vote means that we're going to lay off police department personnel and we're going to lay off fire department personnel. I would submit to you that the primary and foremost and first responsibility of government at all levels is to protect the citizens. So I think that the police and fire should be off this table entirely, and it kind of offends me that every time we are asked to give more money, the trump card is pulled out that we're going to lay off police and fire. That's unacceptable. There are plenty of other departments that could be listed in this brochure to say we're going to have cuts here or we're going to have cuts there. There should be no cuts to the police and the fire departments, and you know it and I know it. And I think most of the people here know it. Then we go on to say that a yes vote means that we're going to maintain activities in the library, the community center, the nature center, and the historical museum. And a no vote means that we're going to shut down the library, we're going to shut down the community center, we're going to shut down the nature center, and we're going to shut down the historical museum. And I would contend that you have no intention of doing so. And if you do, if in fact things are that bad in the city of Troy, I would ask you to sign a declaration of intent that I've brought with me. I have places for each and every one of you to sign. I'm a notary, so we could finish this up tonight if we can. And it says that if the proposed new additional millage of up to 1.9 mils does not pass in February of 2010, I or you would intend to, number one, close down the Troy Library. I'd like you to sign here if that's your intention, because I don't believe it is. And if it's not your intention, then it should come off of that brochure. Second bullet point says, if we don't get this millage passed, I would intend to shut down the community center. I don't believe that's true of you either. And so if it is true, if you really do intend to shut down the community center, I would ask that you sign here as your declaration of intent. If it's not true, I would like to see it taken off the brochure, etc. for the historical museum and the nature center. There's plenty of other ways that you might be able to cut 1.9 mils out of every $1,000 in your budget besides cutting down these institutions. And I think it's kind of fraudulent to suggest in a brochure that you're going to send out to the city residents that that's what your intention is. If it is, I would ask you to sign the declaration of intent. In closing, I would like to suggest that a panel of 5 citizens from the city of Troy be asked to come in and go over the budget with you. Maybe with a different perspective, with a different eye, we can find more ways to cut the budget. And I would most certainly be willing to volunteer to be on that 5-panel board, and I would look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Daniels. James Barr.
Greetings,
Good
Council.
evening, James.
Greetings, Mayor and Council members. The young lady did a terrific job. She really did a terrific job. I'm not capable of expressing myself the way she did, but basically my meanings are the same. The last council meeting, I have several items that I'm going to talk about. At the last council meeting, I suggested that the rebroadcasting of the council meetings be publicized or placed on the menu, or the cable Troy menu, giving the day and time that they appear. I've been checking the menu. The change did not take place, but I picked up the Troy Somerset Gazette, dated December the 7th, that's today, and they got rebroadcasts. Our Wednesdays, 10 a.m. in the morning. Thursdays, 7 p.m. in the evening. Saturdays and Sundays at 4 p.m. in the afternoon and 10 p.m. in the early evening. Now, the Gazette may be picked up at almost any local business place. Going to a restaurant or shopping center, some business, they all have them. The next item is I vote no for the 1.9 mil, which I've expressed before. My interpretation of that 1.9 mil is probably $1.90 per thousand. Now, if I'm correct in that assumption, folks, count your thousands. Count your thousands. No specifics are brought to light at any of these meetings. Everything seems to be in general, and the conversations end up with there's going to be privatization, layoffs, and nothing positive. It always seems to be negative and pressure for that 1.9 mil. Now, this 1.9 mil, when all of these discussions started, was not in the picture. But gradually, over a period of time, now it's in the picture. And it's even been suggested that 1.9 mil might not be enough to balance everything out. So what's going on? Now, why am I bringing this up? Well, here's why. There was an offer made of a 15-day cut without pay. And was that a vacation without pay, or was that a vacation or a non-paying working day? I didn't understand what that answer was. Now, I use this as an example, and I picked this particular sum out, but you can use any dollar sum you want. Example, a salary of $200,000 a year, divide that by 12, approximately $16,666 a month. Now, if you give up 15 days, no pay, when you figure that down, figure it out, you'll find that 15 days amounts to $8,333. Now, when you take that $8,000 and take that, what percentage of the $200,000 is $8,000? 4%. Figure it out. Just multiply 4 into the $400,000. That works out to 4%. Now, is this what the arbitration's about? All this discussion that's going on? Are we talking about a 4% cut with the expectation that we're going to get the 1.9 mil and that still won't suffice? Got to do a lot of thinking here. There's many people out of work that we're making $70,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year. No jobs today. Now, let's all make a New Year's resolution early, and so that we can enjoy the holidays. Make up our minds and a resolution
that we're going to vote no for the 1.9 mil. Folks, my next thought here is the fact that I mentioned the menu and the hours of the council meetings, broadcasts, and so forth, was picked up by somebody and published. Now, my
Mr. Brown,
point-
I need to caution you, your time is up. And I also wanted to indicate that I believe that was put in the paper because it was sent by staff to the paper to put in there so that people could get it immediately. But I agree with you, it should be listed on the menu. I do need to call on the next person, sir.
All right, that's fine. Now you just had another sentence to complete my thoughts. But thank you.
Mr. Brown. Thank you. Marvin Reinhardt. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and council people. It's really hard to figure out what you can't talk on and what you can. It sort of reminds me in Troy High when Schroeder was dealing with the student council. He come up with all these weird rules. I wonder if he's anything to do with Tom Sawyer. The only thing I can some of the things I can comment is I appreciate you guys got all these fancy awards for keeping good books, because since 2005, 40 grand was missing out of one account. So I guess creativeness is very good for the girls. You could give her a promotion for being creative. Because in the military, when they told me to be creative, I was pretty creative out on the battlefield. I was sure of it. Then in my local tab thing that I keep track of Troy, comes across the thing, Godfather of Scam. Of course in Troy. That's what the thing was. I thought of Pilata right off the bat, but it was somebody else that was doing a lot of stealing money on the internet. But really, Godfather, I thought that was Pilata for sure. And then there was a local mayor's conference just on the other side of Rochester, all the movers and shakers. There's 5 of them: Novi, Southfield, Sterling Heights, Dearborn, and of course, the state. You notice 59. They don't need to come in Troy no more, because Troy is noted to be a very corrupt city. Very corrupt. I wonder who's talking to all these people every day. Since I can't talk to the people in the city, I talk to other people. Now, I don't know what I could talk on. I'm going to try to say either, I think it's H4. I'm glad we are going to lose $7,500. You guys are going to withdraw. Don't quit fighting about that. And then over here in I6 and I7, those are the kids that you guys try to blood type of test, and there's going to be a lawsuit. More money we're going to lose. By the way, please raise the taxes in Troy. We're going to need it to pay off these lawsuits. And also, give up on that barnyard house, okay? Fix that cross street there, because we're going to have another Livernois and John R. problem, because the DDA spends so much money on 16 Mile, you can see that light from the moon. As soon as you leave Livernois, you can't drive down Livernois. You can't drive down none of these streets. Like the accident at 16 in Adams. I told that lawyer that was programmed by Birmingham to keep that street closed, and the DDA is the one who controls that corner. I'll let the lawyers decide. The same way at 18 and Crooks, where I lost my first girlfriend, by the way. The family was wiped out, late 50s, and there was supposed to be special lights up there because that's a corner that's foggy all the time. Okay? Supposed to be special lights, and that stuff was taken down. Why? And also, there's no light meters on none of this stuff on 16 Mile. So they can spend money, they can light it up all they want, because they don't got to pay no electric bill. So when other people got to pay electric bills to get, the DDA has unmetered water and everything in this city. As far as that fountain going on, you can't put it in public water like that. I couldn't put a fountain in my pond when it was on the river. So I'm talking to DDR close. Why Troy? Because they're going to use city water for that fountain. They're just going to fake it, folks. They're not going to use that water out of that, because that water's so polluted, that goes in the air, gets on somebody, they're going to get sick. Mark my word. And also, Troy wants to be part of Macomb County, because H8, once again, will say, we want to use Macomb services, that we're going to take money from Oakland County that Patterson gives us, and we're going to drain water in at 14 in DeQuinder area over by industrial area using county funds, and that money goes to the Warren schools. So when our schools need money, remember the transit center, those taxes go to Birmingham. Troy. Beaumont, those taxes go someplace else. And now they're going to use funds as opposed to fix senior citizens, which this project is. I call them Cuntfield, Pad My Pockets, and Stoner Law Firm that thinks that Troy's a piggy bank. There's the guys that got $500,000 for the guy that owns a spring company on the corner over there. And as far as gas taxes, you can't find a gas station within a mile of I-75 at night. After 11 o'clock, you got to go to 17 or 15. Because nobody wants to come in Troy. There's no gas stations. You've got to have a full tank of gas to get out of Troy. And you're trying to get businesses in here? No way. And also, all those guys who made fun of Molar, all these different screen names you guys use, the guy at Oakland Press knows who you guys are. And he's the same persuasion of the guy that you guys made fun of, so they know exactly who attacked Molar. So you guys keep thinking that this city's going fine. Oh wait, T-A-X, tax the city more because these people get too much services and not enough taxes paid. Thank you.
The next person to speak is Gerard Staker.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I came to speak about the proposed ballot brochure that the First Lady spoke about tonight. And to think about it, there's a word in the English language called fiduciary, and to me, it really is one of the most important words in the English language. A fiduciary is a person who's put in a position of trust, a person who's unbiased, and somebody who runs an estate as a fiduciary, somebody who runs a trust as a fiduciary, and we have people in the city who are fiduciaries. And we need to keep that in mind on this ballot language. The ballot language is being proposed tonight to be mailed out in January at taxpayer expense. It will cost at least thousands of dollars. The language is on the website, the city website, and it has a section called, what does a yes vote mean? And what does a no vote mean? It is clearly biased. Like the lady said here before tonight, and she said it correctly, it is extremely biased. The city manager gave a report on September 28th, and he came up with 2 options. He said, really, there are over 100 options. He just mentioned 2. His assumptions were very negative. His assumptions were not in one place. Mr. DeSluver from Raymond Robson would have to put his assumptions in one place had he made a similar report. And countless residents have gotten up here and spoken against a lot of the assumptions, that they're not accurate and they don't reflect what's going on in the city. But it gives a picture that isn't necessarily true, that of what police would have to be laid off, of what would happen to the library. It's not up to the city manager, it's up to the citizens of Troy what is done with money and how to best handle it. It is clearly a biased piece of literature. Under a yes vote, it could have said, and it didn't, a yes vote means your operating millage will go up close to 30%, even though the inflation rate is down to about 0%. A yes vote means you'll be paying $200 to $300 more in taxes a year on the average Troy resident for 5 years. That will be between $1,000 and $1,500 more you'll have to pay. Some people in Troy have that in their escrow account, and it means that if they're barely hanging on now, their house will go into a foreclosure, further driving down the tax base. That's what a yes vote would mean. It doesn't say it in the literature. A yes vote means you're condoning a special election next year, even though 2 are already paid for on the ballot, that will cost at least $75,000 and possibly more. That could keep a police officer employed, but instead the money's being spent on a city election. It's really a bad result, but it's not mentioned in the literature. A yes vote means that businesses will not locate to Troy, well, they will not locate into Troy because they will have to pay a higher millage, considerably higher millage. Some who are here in Troy, after their lease is up or at some point in the future, will no doubt move out. That's what a yes vote will mean. It doesn't say that here in the literature. It is an extremely biased piece of literature. This yes-no section should be stricken. We should not use taxpayer money for it. And there's a fiduciary responsibility that the city manager has. The city manager, if this is released, is spending money to pit one group of Troy citizens against another. That shouldn't be. If people want to form their own committee with their own money to vote yes or vote no, that's fine. But don't use taxpayer money to do it. It's a wrong thing to do. It is extremely disturbing, and it should be stopped. The city manager has a fiduciary responsibility to the people of Troy. He works for all of us, regardless of our political opinions, regardless of who we are. He needs to treat all of us equally. He is a professional man, and he must stand up to his professional standards. And you two on the city council, I saw Councilwoman McGinnis, Councilman Slater, and re-elected Councilman Fleming take the oath of office. And some people may have thought, so what? But it was really a very moving experience because you have taken an oath of office that you will work beyond yourselves, beyond your political opinions, and do what's right. And that would mean not to use taxpayer money for a political purpose. It's a very important and moving thing. Please strike this language from this brochure. Please do not use taxpayer money to advance a political opinion. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you. The next person to speak is James Savage.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening,
members of
Mr.
council.
Savage.
I'm going to continue talking about the transit centre. I guess it's a good thing you stopped me the first time. I got to find my place now. Okay, at the previous two meetings, I commented on the Detroit bus system and the People Mover operating at about 10% of capacity. The Smart bus system operates at less than that. And I didn't get these figures from reading reports, which are usually biased. I got these figures by watching the buses. And when I see a 40-seater bus continually with less than 4 people on it, it's operating at less than 4%. And when I'm on the People Mover, which I think holds probably 60-odd people, and I'm the only one, it is operating at far less than 10%. These are where I get my figures, and if you don't believe me, go downtown and check it out. Look at the buses on Woodward Ave, Woodward and Adams, Woodward and Congress. They're sitting there with no passengers. The system has to be in downtown Detroit, but it has to be efficient. I also commented on Oakland County's transit system, transit study that cost the taxpayers, this was about 9-10 years ago, cost the taxpayers $2 million for the study alone. And it covered all the transit in Oakland County, and it did not mention a Troy-Birmingham Transit Center. We had a $50,000, minimum of $50,000 futuring study that studied what future is going to look like, what Troy is going to look like in the future. No mention of a Troy-Birmingham Transit Center. So it would seem that the beneficiaries of these studies were the consulting companies and not the residents, because these programs did not go anywhere. As I said before, I'm in favour of public mass transit, but only if it serves a need. Smaller buses would save money by being fuel efficient and would be only a fraction of the cost of a full-size bus. I have seen cities where they used to operate, I'm going to say it, double-decker buses, so you know where I'm coming from. Now the same city operates small buses, there's buses every few minutes. You don't see the big buses anymore, and they're operated privately and they make a profit. Okay, in peak times, small buses would employ more drivers, which brings more employment. Now, I understand that Grand Sacra Corporation developed and built, with the help from the City of Troy, one of the best commercial residential centres in the area, and it is a great concept and it works good with the residential, commercial and everything together. So I'm thinking, would this not make Grand Sacra the main beneficiary of a transit centre right adjoining their development. So now we know where the idea comes from. The transit problems facing Troy residents in the next few years will be one-car families getting their kids and teenagers safely around the area and to and from school activities, safe streets and sidewalks for people to go back to walking and biking. We talk about spending up to $150 million for the transit centre, yet we can't provide shelters for the school bus stops. My suggestion to council is look at the area system that exists and improve on what we have by eliminating the waste. Stop excuse me. Stop funding SMART until they smarten up and use more frequent small buses. You need to look at mass transit as a method of moving people, not as an excuse for building white elephants. In February, it will be difficult to convince Troy residents to pay more taxes and city workers to take cuts, while millions are being wasted on projects such as the transit centre and the Big Beaver Rochester intersection. One paragraph. We must stop the waste of these tax dollars, whether it be federal, state or local. It is our grandchildren's future that we are putting in debt. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Ashland.
Yes, indeed, I am David Ashland, a Troy resident, and I'd like to talk to you tonight about the tax ballot issue in the document that's been proposed. I looked up a quote I read some time ago by Oliver Wendell Holmes, who stated that taxes are the price we pay for civilization. I like Oliver Wendell Holmes, and I agree with him. I also think taxes are kind of like vitamins. As individuals, if we have a good dietary input and we're healthy, we probably don't need them. But when our normal input is reduced and we get a little weak, we probably need a supplement. Maybe some of you take it. That's our personal care. As a Troy society, when our tax diet is at a normal rate, we have a healthy town and a healthy Troy society. But right now, our tax diet is down. I think we need a supplement. I think we need something to get us through this period of poor input, negative input, a reduced input. So I'm in favor of a tax increase. I want to make that clear. We've gone through an era in recent years of minimizing taxes. How can we cut taxes? How can we avoid tax increases? How as individuals can each of us manage to pay less to the government structures because we know they don't use them well? By the way, I don't agree with that, but that's generally an outlook. I think now we're entering an era when we have to say, as citizens, we need to preserve our civilization, as Oliver Wendell Holmes stated, and our society. We need to look at how can we give a little bit more to get us through this period. Okay, now in order to have an informed electorate on this issue, this document is being proposed. And I think the document needs to clearly state to the electorate the impact if we can pass this tax and the impact if we don't pass the tax. The word biased was mentioned. I think the present document is biased. I think it's biased in the direction of factual, accurate statements. And I like it. I think we need to clearly state to people the kind of things that might happen if this tax increase is not approved. I don't think anyone would say for sure on a given date reduction X would occur or reduction Y would occur on a different date. But we all know the trend. We all know what might happen and what will likely happen. So I think we're heading in the right direction here. I think the document looks pretty good. I'd like to see the tax proposal pass, and I hope we get our vitamins. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashland. The next speaker is Audrey Zembruski.
Sorry, I had a shot in my knee last week and this week and next week, and it's kind of hard to walk on. Mayor, council members, and Mr. Zerlak and Mr. Lamorato, I want to say your presentation was very good today, and I enjoyed listening to it. But I'm here basically on the tax increase, and it's not on the increase or the decrease or whatever, but it's on how it's going to be presented, because we have a bunch of students that have just gotten their voter's registration. They're very proud of it, and when asked, which way should I vote? I'm going to say one person that works in the city turned around and said, I work for the city. I cannot tell you how to vote. Read your papers, read this, read that, read anything, talk to your parents, anybody. But I cannot, as an employee of the city, talk about it. So be proud of who works for you, Mr. Lamorato. To say the library is going to be closed down, no, we know it's not. I'm on the board. We know we can shut down the hours, close earlier, 7 o'clock, close a couple days a week, but no. But right now, through the high schools, it is going around that everybody that turned 18 and got their voter's registration, get out and vote, because that library is going to be closed on you. We just had it brought up at our advisory board meeting, and that is exactly what is intended. They think the 1.9 is all going for the library, and it is not. And so somebody better tell the schools and everybody that this is not true, that they have to learn what the money is going for. And I told them, it's general fund. General fund means that it will go for the most important things that have to be done, and that means paying off lawsuits and whatever. So it's not going for the library, it's not going for the museum, but we have to help our students learn to vote in the correct way, and not through all the campaign literature that goes out and says, I'm not going to raise taxes, I'm not going to do this, and then goes right in reverse. Let's help our new voters, because they are the ones that are going to suffer in the end. Just want to tell you what's going on.
The next speaker is Donald Schenk. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. It's nice to see all of you here this evening.
Thank you.
I'm here to speak on the question H7, which has to do with an information brochure. This is important for everyone here, whether they're on council or in the audience, to remember we're talking about an information brochure. We're not talking about how we're going to vote. We're going to talk about whether or not we approve a brochure, which is information, not whether or not we're going to raise taxes. Raising taxes is up to the voters. This is about informing the voters. Raising taxes is an option. It is not a decision. It is one option. It is a tool in the toolkit that all of you exercise when you exercise due diligence and your fiduciary responsibility. We need to remember that we have to have a balanced approach to solving issues of compelling urgency, and we find ourselves in a compellingly urgent situation. We need to do so in the same spirit of full disclosure that has been the hallmark of Troy, as represented by the awards given to our financial management experts, Mr. Lamorato and his staff. Sir, congratulations on the job well done. There's been some question about the nature of the content in the existing brochure. The content, as I reviewed it, is 100% consistent with what the city manager has been presenting to the city council for some time. So there should be no surprise about the content. It's based on facts. It's based on data. And these facts and this data must be the hallmark of all the discussion on this issue from our elected leaders as well as our appointed leaders and their staff in the coming months. I urge your careful consideration of the measure before you, whether or not we adopt a brochure to inform the taxpayers, to inform the electorate. I urge your careful consideration of the measure before you tonight and your careful, diligent consideration about how you speak in the coming weeks on this matter. And remember that as you discuss it as members of City Council on behalf of all voters of the city whom you are sworn to serve, and whose future and safety is yours and yours alone to guarantee. As importantly, I urge all of those who will cast their votes in February to keep in mind that their actions in the future will enable the city to remain the beacon that it has been in the past in the region and throughout the entire state. We need to remember that 1.9 mils equals $1.90 per $1,000 of assessed value, and that is the maximum amount that might be taxed. Those are very, very conditional statements, and they address the supply side of our dilemma. The demand side of the dilemma must be equally addressed, and all of us know and understand what that means. We have to work together. We have to work together as a team. We have to work together with the interests of our city in mind. And I urge that everyone continue to address the issues based on facts and not emotion. And finally, on a point that's not on our agenda, I would ask that at some point today we all pause and remember. Pause and remember the selfless service of those men and women who gave the last full measure of devotion, December 7th, 1941. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that, Mr. Shank. This is a day that all of us need to be remembering that. That concludes those that signed up. I know there's a couple others that want to speak, but we're going to take a 10-minute break, come back to this, and then continue on with the agenda. Council's back in session, and when we left off, we had two people that still wanted to speak under the public comment section of the agenda, and so I'll call on those two people now. Jack Witt raised his hand, and then we have John Marion, who I'll call on next. Mr. Witt?
Members of Council, good evening.
Good evening.
A lot of spin and misinformation has been coming out of City Hall the last few months. However, this proposed election information brochure clearly tops everything else. I know the city manager and the mayor, and possibly a couple of the mayor's tag-alongs, don't really care, but the fact is that Michigan law prohibits the use of taxpayer dollars by a municipality or other public entity to persuade voters on a matter on which they are voting. However, not only is the proposed brochure illegal, it is also misleading and dishonest. The 29% $40 million tax increase it proposes is truly outrageous and, needless to say, not necessary, especially given the economic challenges faced by the residents, and especially given that the city has not gotten its own spending in order. Oakland County is not proposing an increase, and there's at least 250 municipalities and other public entities in Metro Detroit. As far as I know, not one is proposing a 29% tax increase. Yet Troy needs such an extreme increase to keep the library open, to keep the streets plowed? Obviously not true, unless your points are on purpose, that is, a blatant threat to the voters because of your own biases. And if that's the case, why don't you be honest about it and say that even though it's not necessary, if you don't support a 29% $40 million tax increase, we will close the library. A previous speaker suggested that the brochure is fine because it's all factual. Okay, let's look at it. All factual. All factual, specifically. A no vote means, it says here, close the library, close the museum, close the nature center, close the community center. Okay, is that factual? I don't think you should send out the brochure unless you're willing to say that that's factual. And even then it's questionable whether it's permitted to try to persuade voters with taxpayer money. So before you vote on the language for a brochure, think carefully. Do you want to be on record as supporting an illegal tax-funded brochure, one which engages in dishonest propaganda and outright scare tactics? It's interesting, another prior speaker said, yeah, it's biased, but we have to take our vitamins once in a while. He's entitled to his opinion, but he feels very good about it, obviously, because it is biased in his favor. But the point is, communications to the voters, supported by the taxpayer money, can't be biased either way. It has to be strictly factual. Thank you.
And Mr. Marion, you wish to speak? John Marion?
Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. I'll only need a couple of minutes of it. I'm John Marion from Michigan Drill Corporation and Lavelli and Ide Reamer Corporation, 1863 and 1889 Larchwood. Michigan Drill Corporation's been there since approximately 1968. I've been there since 1974. Saw the demographics of that area and that industrial park change tremendously over the years. We started on a dirt road, literally. Became cement. It was a wonderful thrill. The situation that's developed, and my recommendation to your traffic council, and I hope that you follow their recommendations, that there's an unusual intersection at the end of Larchwood that intersections with Austin that's just Pandora's box. I've been almost T-boned there every time I go that way. Thank God I don't go that way every day. It's just an unusual intersection that needs to be addressed. The traffic engineer conceded and I hope you'd please follow their lead and their recommendations. I know it's going to make a couple people down there a little upset, but I think in the idea of it, and that I look at as a community, whether you work or live in it, is to egress into it, not to see how fast you can drive through it. That's what expressways are for. When you come into your community, it's to be able to negotiate it and maneuver through it safely, and that intersection doesn't allow that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it, Mr. Marion. That concludes those that wanted to speak under the public comment section. And so we'll continue on now with regular business. And our first item of regular business is appointments to board and committees. And so I'll move the resolution to appoint to the Local Development Finance Authority Dane Slater, City Council alternate, for a term expiring 11/11/2013, and Maureen McGinnis, City Council alternate, the term expiring 11/11/2013.
Support.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we make those two appointments. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howrlack?
Just a point of clarification. As many people who know me and who have attended these meetings over the years know that I am not in favor of the existence of the LDFA and have voted against all appointments. And as a matter of fact, if you appointed the Archbishop to serve on it, I would vote against him too. So it's, again, I say that only because I want folks to know it's not that I'm voting against you, it's I'm voting against the concept of the board you're being appointed to.
Thank you. Any other comments? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howrlack?
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. And City Council appointments, we have several that are listed here.
Mayor,
Councilman Slater?
I'd like to move the resolution to nominate Mary Kerwin as the City Council representative for the Employee Retirement System Board of Trustees / Retirement Healthcare Benefits Plan and Trust.
And well, we do all of them now at one thing. Do you want to do the rest of them then? Parks and Rec?
Sure. Sorry. I'd also like to appoint Jeffrey Stewart, Troy Day's representative,
To the Parks and Rec
to
Board.
the Parks and Rec Board, to the Troy Days Committee, Robert A. Burke, Michael S. Ganda, and Sandra Meknes.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we appoint those people to the committees as so read and printed in the agenda. Yes, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor, when the initial appointments were nominated last meeting,
Yes.
the position for Councilmember Kerwin was noted with an expiration date of 2010. It has been adjusted on this to 2012, and I wanted to make sure that was noted.
Right. Thank you. Yes, 2012. Thank you. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
If I could, I really, part of the motion.
Pardon?
We need that to be included as part of the
Oh,
motion.
all right. Yes. All right. Councilman Slater, would you like to include that? Go back to the term and give the. You want?
Pardon? If you'd like to state as stated
printed?
into the
As
motion.
printed in the agenda, as corrected in the agenda?
That would work.
All right, it's corrected in the agenda. Thank you. The vote then, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howrlack?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. And nominations to boards and committees this evening. We have some reappointments for Planning Commission, and so I move the reappointment of Michael W. Hudson for the term expiring 11/11/2013, Philip Zanzica for the term expiring 11/11/2013, and John J. Tagle, reappointment, the term expiring 11/11/2013.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilman Fleming, that we reappoint those three people to the Planning Commission.
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Beltramini?
Mr. Sanzica has had several absences, and in fact 5 in a row. Was there a family or medical or some reason for that you discussed with him?
I did not, no.
Because it looks like, and I haven't done the math, but it looks like he may have missed as much as 30% of those meetings.
I did notice on the Planning Commission attendance that we had another member there that has missed even more.
He's not up for reappointment.
And I know, and so a discussion would be in order.
Mr. Miller may know something.
Yes, Mr. Miller?
Madam Mayor, members of council, I do know that Mr. Sanzica has had a number of health issues, including hospitalization.
Thank you.
Last time I saw him was when we had our joint meeting, and he looked well then, but I didn't have that information.
I simply thought maybe you talked to them before you reappointed them.
This is Mrs. Bartholomew, we're ready for the vote? We had a mover and a second. This is on nominations for Planning Commission.
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin? Yes. McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. And City Council nominations? Mayor Pro Tem? Did you have it? Okay. Do any other council members have any names they want to bring forward on, okay.
Madam, we had a student.
Yes, we did have a student today introduced to us, and that was for the Troy Days Committee. I'm looking for it here.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Howard?
Let's see here. I was going to add that for nominations, we should probably do these two Building Code Board of Appeals by ordinance, John Zerlag and Michael Pilar. And also, I'm guessing that we can figure out the SEMCOG here at the table. And I don't have my form in front of me right now, but
Which are you bringing forward first? The Building Code Board of Appeals?
Right, that would be
for John Zerlag and Michael Parlak.
Right.
Moved by Councilman Parlak, seconded by Councilman Beltramini. And then do you want to look at the SEMCOG? The folks that have served on SEMCOG, do they wish to continue?
that's what I would recommend if they wanted to continue.
You want to move that resolution then, Councilman
I will
Howard?
move to reappoint Robin Beltramini as the delegate, Mark Miller as the alternate.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilman Fleming. Can we take these both in the same vote, even though we have a mover and second that's different?
No, unless your second motion was considered to be an amendment to add those two to the first one. Was it the intention of the maker of the motion to amend the first motion to add the SEMCOG?
Councilman Howard?
If not, then the second motion is out of order.
Okay, so we'll take one, then we'll take the other. Okay, the vote then on the Building Code Board of Appeals for reappointment?
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin? Yes. McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. And now for the SEMCOG delegate and alternate. Do we need it repeated? Yes. Councilman Howard.
Mayor, I will move to nominate, I believe is the word I need
Right.
to use, Robin Beltramini as the delegate and Mark Miller as the alternate to SEMCOG.
Right. And Mayor Pro Tem Fleming? You want to
Yeah.
second? Okay, moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we nominate Robin Beltramini as the council member delegate and Mark Miller as the alternate for SEMCOG. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin? Yes. McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Arlen?
Yes.
Motion passes. And the others then we'll take up at the next meeting if we have people to fill in those positions. Okay, next we have H3, which is City of Troy versus Century Plaza, Rochester Road Improvement Project. Someone want to move the resolution?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Beltramini?
resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves the proposed consent judgment in the City of Troy v. Century Plaza condemnation case, and hereby authorizes payment in the amount stated therein, and further authorizes the city attorney's office to execute the document, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed and as read. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howlett?
Yes.
Kerwin? Yes.
Motion passes. H4 is City of Troy versus JMT Properties LLC, Rochester Road Improvement Project.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Beltramini?
resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves the proposed consent judgment in the City of Troy v. JMT Properties LLC et al. Condemnation case, and hereby authorizes payment in the amount stated therein, and further authorizes the city attorney's office to execute the document, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Just a question because I can't remember the answer. What is the, what are the dimensions of this property again?
It's a smaller amount, it's an easement. And if I
Mrs.
can
Blum?
have just a moment here.
1,000 square feet.
Comment? I don't have a copy of the appraisal with me. I can certainly get it from my office.
Is your mic on, Mrs. Bloom? I don't.
Okay.
Is her mic on? Okay. I don't think it's. I'm going through the judgment real quick here. I don't see it.
Mayor, I don't have that information readily available. I have the appraisal back in my office. If that's critical to have, I certainly could get that.
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
That's fine. The other question I had was, how many additional properties are we still unsettled with on this road project?
There are a number of them that are not yet settled. However, this one is a little, this one can be distinguished from the other cases. This is a case where they are, we are getting an easement only. And in addition, there are some unusual arrangements with the ownership of this property that have resulted in us being able to successfully negotiate a proposed settlement.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Howard?
Yeah, I'm just going to make a brief comment and say that I think on its face that the resolution is certainly reasonable. However, my concern is that it's a condemnation case that is part of a larger project. Basically, it's an acquisition that's part of a larger road project and may have ramifications across that project and across other projects that we do in the future. And I think that the amount of money we're paying is not justified on its face. So that's my concern, and I'll be voting against the resolution.
Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Carla?
No.
Kerwin? Yes. McGinnis? Yes.
Motion passes. Amendment to the Barnard Agreement.
I'll move the resolution, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Kerwin.
Resolved that Troy City Council hereby approves the amendment to agreement by and between Harriet Barnard and the City of Troy for the donation of an historical house, and hereby authorizes the mayor and city clerk to execute the document, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Howerlack, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Kerwin.
I think it's wonderful that we have, that the Barnard family has made this accommodation for another year. I know that the Troy Historical Group has worked very, very hard to come up with the funds to move that, and I think it will be a wonderful asset to the Historic Museum. I look forward to that happening.
Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Carla?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. H6 is the proposed Troy City Code Ordinance Amendment, Chapter 13, Historic Preservation.
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Beltramini.
Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby adopts an ordinance amendment to Chapter 13, Section 3, Historic Preservation, by removing the historic district designation of the property located at 5875 Livernois Road, a copy of which shall be attached to the original minutes of this meeting.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we approve the resolution as printed and read. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Carla?
No.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis? Yes. Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. H7, the February 23rd, 2010 special election millage question brochure. I call to council's attention the red line changes that are in the document before us on in several places.
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Kerwin.
If it would be all right before putting a resolution, might we ask some questions of City Manager?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for this.
Yes. Councilwoman Kerwin. Questions for Mr. Zerlag?
Mr. Zerlag, earlier during public comment, in fact, the very first person who spoke up regarding the what a no vote means. Now, since you first presented to us the 5-year plan and all of the options, isn't it true that you pointed out that many employees would go? In fact, that you could let go everyone on staff and still have to go into the police department. Would you speak to that issue?
I'll be happy to.
Mr. Zerlag? Yes.
Back in September, when I had first issued the letter that spoke about the accumulated deficit between revenues and expenditures of about $22 million, I had those numbers checked by our city assessor. I had them checked by Mr. Bob Datto, the deputy county executive. I had them checked by members in the private sector that are in the financial, real estate, and development markets. and they agreed that those projections are accurate. That was the first what that we spoke about. What is it? And that was that we have an economically unsustainable organization. Given our forecast of reduced revenues on a declining revenue line for at least the next 5 years, and assuming that expenditures would increase by about 2% a year. If we did nothing, we'd have a deficit of about $22 million. Since that time, many other cities have indicated something very similar. By newspaper accounts, the city of Grand Rapids is laying off, I think, 125 people January 1st. Farmington Hills has indicated a $7 million deficit next fiscal year. I heard today from Chief Nelson that the city of Ypsilanti has 4 firefighters on duty to cover the entire city of Ypsilanti, as well as Eastern Michigan University. Governor Blanchard, Granholm, has indicated, that goes back a ways. Governor Granholm has indicated that she doesn't think she has enough receivers on staff to cover the municipalities that are going to go bankrupt next year. So I think it's pretty much off the table that we have to cover about a $22 million deficit. When I sat down with staff, and staff again, essentially on this matter of the budgetary or the multi-year budgeting, and can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Consisted primarily of Mr. Lamorato and Mr. Miller, the 2 assistant managers, Mr. Mayer, our police chief, Mr. Nelson, our fire chief, Ms. Sears, our HR director, Mr. Licari, our city assessor, and Mr. Nash, our director of financial services, and Ms. Bartholomew, our city clerk. That was a core group that I used to take a look at and extrapolate budget numbers. And our first charge was to essentially realize that our core service as a municipality is police, fire, and public works. Everything else, it's nice to have. Because of the shortfall that we were experiencing, we wanted to not touch police, fire, and public works. That entailed essentially looking at general fund departments and what the revenues were and expenditures of having to close down the library, the museum, the nature center, the community center, and because the budgets of police, fire, and public works take the preponderance of the entire general fund budget revenues, we could not leave them alone. And it also involved a few years down the line the beginning of layoffs in those areas. I had also mentioned that that indeed was option 1. Option 2 would have been to try to have some semblance of a reduced level of service for library, museum, nature center, and community center, but then there would be more layoffs in the police department and fire departments. That was indicated also in September, because simply we have to have a balanced budget. If I don't provide you with a balanced budget, the state of Michigan comes in and balances the budget for us. We also spoke about, and this was also in my letter in September, of taking a look at utilizing the fund balance, looking at our capital projects, and those projects were essentially divided into infrastructure projects, quality of life projects, and economic development projects. It was decided to leave the infrastructure projects as is. In particular, we don't even have enough money that we budget at this time for road projects, and so in future years we want to make sure we at least have $5 million for local road maintenance. It was decided also to, I think, put a hold, based on our last discussion on this matter at the council table, for the economic development projects and quality of life projects to see if we could leverage those funds with grant monies. So that essentially left people at that point. And that's why option 1 has a reduction in personnel, as well as option 2. I'm sorry for the long answer, but what I hear, and to use the state of Michigan as a poor example, is that you have one group saying that no matter what you do, don't raise taxes, and another group saying no matter what you do, we need to raise taxes. Here, our model is, number 1, it's multi-yeared, which I think, to use Councilwoman Kerwin's statement a few months back, is we're not kicking the can down the road like the state of Michigan. we're looking at a multi-year approach for this problem. And it's a blending of what the state is trying to figure out at their level. We're asking for a reduction in expenditures. Job one is to take a look at everything that we do and provide it in the most cost-efficient manner. Unfortunately, just last week I had to issue layoff notices to 7 full-time personnel, 4 in the building department and 3 in the engineering department. Those individuals had done a stellar job for us, but the economy that is external and affects the city as an organization is just such that there was not enough work for those individuals. It could have been spread out among other folks, and we did that. We are also taking a look at privatization and regionalization as a way to reduce that expenditure line that we projected out. And I am working with the various employee groups for reducing our payroll costs that would be effective either this coming January 1 or at the latest July 1st, 2010. So we're doing all these things. And again, based on discussions that we've had at this table, based on memoranda I had written and PowerPoint discussions, and discussing with my staff, as well as the law department, we believe that the brochure is something that is what's going to happen if there's a yes vote for a millage increase or a no vote for a millage increase. Having said that, as manager, I am responsible for the content. So although I took input from my staff and from the attorney's office, I realize that while I can delegate authority, I do not wish to delegate responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. The reason I called the attention of council to the changes that here in the red line is that the question of the second from the bottom on the left-hand side is proposed to be changed to how will the proposed 1.9 millage rate affect the average city portion of a City of Troy residential tax bill, and then in parentheses, average based on the market value of a $206,000 home. The reason that that change was requested is that, as you folks know, the City of Troy, by law, must be the collector of the taxes for other entities, and then we pass those funds on to them. As you also know, you in December here received your winter tax bill. And if you looked at your winter tax bill carefully and looked at all the things that were specified, there was nothing there that went to the City of Troy except for the administrative fee that covers our costs for the collection of the collecting and then passing it on. And all that money in your winter tax bill goes to the other entities, county, schools, etc. There's the list there. Then we have our tax bill that comes in the summer, and in the summer portion, that's where our city portion of the tax bill is listed on that tax bill. I thought that it should be very clear on the brochure that we are talking about the 1.9 point millage rate effect on the city portion of the tax bill, so that folks would know that for the 5-year period that this is requested for, that it is for that, and then it goes on with other explanation. And then we had another council member, Councilmember McGinnis, asked that we change the wording on the right on the yes vote means to change it to say maintain full service levels in the police department and maintain full service levels in the fire department, maintain full service levels in the public works department, including 24-hour snow relief. Those were the changes that were suggested in red line. And then we had another communication from Councilman Beltramini about some other things, and then of course we have other council members that we may wish to say things. that they'd like to see in or out of the brochure.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Beltrame?
First, and as you know from the message I wrote to the city manager, I don't believe that we actually need to have this whole, how would the 1.9 mil affect the rate of the city portion of my taxes on this side of this brochure. I think it's real simple. A yes vote, your taxes go down, or a yes vote, your taxes go up $38, and a no vote, they go down. However, we have been using the figure of they will go down $158. When I subtract 996 from 1,114, I get 118, not 158. I didn't catch this earlier. So can we have Nino or John run the real numbers and let us know what they are, because the math in this brochure doesn't work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't catch that until the mayor drew attention to it, and I was like, that isn't right. I understand that if we are going to send out this brochure, and I think we need to send out a balanced piece, we also need to explain in similar fashion to what Mr. Zerleg just did, why the quality of life services and the public safety services are inextricably linked at this point. I think that if people are going to vote yes or no, without that explanation, it is real easy to say, you're never going to close the library. I know that will never happen. You have millions of books that will just fall apart if you close the library. And then you will have others that say, we must leave the library open because people need it to look for a job, because people without a job don't have cable at home. So it's worth paying for. Well, they are inextricably linked because we cannot afford both at this point. I mean, it is that simple. And so when you go down further, when I said, speaking to Ms. Daniels' point, when she started the conversation this evening, and she said we need more specificity. Tell us what you're going to cut in the police department. So I took Chief Mayor's memo, and I said, lay off police department personnel and decrease or eliminate services, including, but not limited to, traffic safety, juvenile, criminal investigations, criminal intelligence, animal control, community services. Tell us what we're going to lose. I think that's critical. And I used maintain at least 55 hours per week of service in the Troy Public Library. And 55, I don't think on reflection is the right number. Whatever it is, that we still can qualify for grant funding, so that as property values go down, even with a tax rate increase, we may still have to reduce those services. I also appreciate the fact that you changed and took millage out, although that was not a highlighted change. I think that is much more honest and less deceptive. I think if you move the proposed millage to a yes or a no piece, and I take it John has the right number now, that then we can say things. You have used snow plowing on both the yes and the no. And we just had an article in, I think it was Troy Times, that talked about Oakland County and their wonderful de-icers that we've been using for 9 years. Mm-hmm. So we've already done those cost-cutting efficiency kinds of things. And I say in my memo to you, John, that if you're using snow plowing, tell what we've done. As we've told what we've done in cutting personnel, in cutting costs. That's one of the things that directly relates to both sides of this equation in the bullets. We have taken from our own savings, and I think I tallied up literally millions of dollars, and as John Lamorato said, we've made up the $1.2 million deficit in state shared revenue out of cost-saving measures and our own savings account so far. I'm not going to go through all of this. I would like you all to read it, give consideration to some of the points I have raised, because I was unhappy. So that's where I am.
While we consider if we want to make the brochure longer in content, some of the information I know is going to be on the website. In item 4 question, it says, where can I find additional information? And yet I understand that we have to provide a certain amount of basic information to everybody. I'd like to have our city attorney speak to the fact that we are allowed as a city government to send out a brochure. Would you speak to the legality of that, please, since it was brought up in the public comment section?
Yes, Mayor. The individual who did speak was correct. There is a provision in the Campaign Finance Act that does prohibit propaganda pieces from being financed with taxpayers' funding. So anything that the City of Troy sends out, it must be factual, and it must not take a position either in favor of or against the proposal.
Okay. And in order to meet that standard, who reviews it then before it's sent out to say that it meets that standard?
Well, certainly having it vetted in the public is one opportunity for people to bring any concerns. Certainly City Council is weighing in on that. We have administratively reviewed it, and if we were to send out something which was later determined to be a campaign propaganda, one in favor of or in opposition to, certainly there are some other remedies that are provided for under the Campaign Finance Act, and other persons, other entities have jurisdiction to enforce that and or file a lawsuit against us.
Okay. And the other thing I need to ask is, in my recollection, each time that we have a charter amendment or a ballot issue on the ballot over the past number of years, the city has sent out an informational piece which is balanced. Is that correct?
We have traditionally and historically sent out information to the voters as well as posted it online, again providing the ballot language as well as some yeses and nos. We've used the same format for the past several brochures.
Okay. And the other thing, someone inquired why we don't just put it online and not mail something out. And my recollection of that is that that we might be disenfranchising some voters that do not have access to a computer if we don't actually send something out. If we are expecting them to get it by some other venue. Is that true? Mrs. Blum?
I know that we have historically done a written brochure that goes to all of the residents, as well as used websites and other means of getting the word out. So yes, it is possible that it could disenfranchise the voters, and certainly you want the public to be as educated as they can.
Okay, thank you. Further comments on certain items on the brochure? Who wants to go next? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Yeah, just following up on what Mrs. Bloom stated, would it not be advisable to have someone outside this city administration and legal counsel to review this language to make sure it is unbiased? I know in the past with some things we run by the Attorney General's office. Is this something that would be prudent to do as well, just to make sure that this is unbiased and we're not setting ourselves up to any legal action?
Mrs. Blum?
I have spoken with
one of the attorney generals, the assistant attorney generals. He has not provided a specific review of this particular ballot language. Again, some of it has been changed, but he has reviewed the language, although I will tell you that this is not something that the Attorney General's office, the ballot language is not something that they review. So getting them to review it, it would be a courtesy that they would do for us at this point in time. I certainly will follow up on that, but I'm not likely to have an answer to that because the one contact that I do have that would perform that service for us is out for a couple of weeks on vacation. And I would just also indicate that timing is an issue, and Ms. Bartholomew is probably better suited to address the timing concerns than I am, but it relates to the absentee ballots and the distribution of the absentee ballots and the fact that you want the informational brochures to go out before the absentee ballots are mailed.
Further questions? Councilwoman McGinnis?
I just had two separate questions. I think that one would be directed to the city clerk in terms of the cost of the printing. I know I had asked for this information earlier today, but the exact amount that was quoted, is that something that you can tell us publicly? And also, can you compare that to the cost of what we spent sending out the charter proposal explanation brochure as well?
Yes, the estimate or the quote that came in from our Printing Systems Incorporated, who holds the blanket order for all election printings, came in at $2,845. It compares to the November charter language, and I'm going to approximate it, but it was right around $3,600, slightly over. And the reason for that is, if you recall, it was a bifolded document, and so it was about twice the size of this. That is printing and placing the addresses on the document and preparing them and training them to go to the post office. That does not include postage. The postage, in addition to that, going one for every household in Troy, comes in as a first-class mailing rate of $9,425.85. And that would be also hitting P.O. boxes and our out-of-town mailing, which would be military, anybody that has a permanent out-of-Troy address.
And these costs would be out of the city clerk's office budget, correct?
That is correct. It would come out of the city clerk's elections accounts.
And my other question that I had for Mr. Zerlag, if I may, was just in regards to some specific language at the bottom of the column that indicates a yes vote means, where it states maintain services that many residents and businesses look for in a city. Councilwoman Beltramini spoke earlier regarding some specificity in terms of the items that we're listing in these columns. And I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit more detail in how this particular statement was added to this column, along with the items that we've also heard over and over again since we began talking about the options that we have for the budget.
I'll be happy to. While I'm beginning with the answer, if I could ask Cindy Stewart to come in and follow up on that, I'd appreciate it, because Cindy did the research. On this last question, when I was meeting with staff, we spoke about what residents and that residents who aspire to live in Troy, what they expect, and would there be a way to empirically indicate that. And we thought that based on some testimonials that we had, some surveys that were conducted, the number of people that visit our library and community center would be a good indication that people aspire to live in Troy and expect certain services. Also, by talking with both chiefs, Chief Mayer and Chief Nelson, in their experience, primarily it was through Mr. Mayer. Mr. Nelson was out today and last week, but there are areas within the police fire service areas where residents do get a very good treatment and expect a certain level of service. In talking with developers, I was told, this goes back to the first time I was manager, a builder had told me that he could build one house in Troy and build the exact same footprint on another house outside of Troy and the house in Troy would sell for more money because of the amenities that we had offered through our parks and recreation program and other amenities like open space, as well as a strong police and fire department and good infrastructure. So when you take a look at what people look for when they want to develop, as well as what people look for when they want to live here, we believe that many residents and many businesses look to the services we provide to stay here or aspire to live here. And having said that, if Cindy's around, you can speak with a little more specificity in what you found.
I gathered what I had. It was the last 3 surveys that we've done. We have done them through the National Citizen Survey. We have done them through a private company and 2 private companies. And all of these were analysis. One, we had the sentiment toward the City of Troy among current residents. We have one regarding the City of Troy among business representatives. And then the other one was the citizen survey. But basically, they all say the same thing. The quality of life ratings, the resident responses, Troy is a place to live. We were in the 95th percentile. Neighborhood is a place to live, 90. Troy is a place to raise children, 93. And then the overall quality of life in Troy, 90%. And then I also have the overall quality of life in Troy, excellent and good were 90%. The quality of life ratings, those were pretty much the same. They go from the excellent and good were 95%. And then we had the characteristics of the community. Those all range. The sense of community, openness and acceptance, overall appearance of Troy, shopping, recreational, job opportunities, all within the 70s to 90%. Then we had when you looked at the businesses, the importance of the ability to provide their employees with access to the City of Troy, parks and recs, libraries, and other recreational activities. The very to somewhat satisfied, that was, I have to add them up quick, 84% from the employers. And then we had the very and very or somewhat satisfied, the same thing with the business community related to our permit processes, our zoning ordinances, our taxes when considering the value provided, public transportation, labor pool. Those all range. Labor pool available was 79%, but the other ones were 90% to down, depending on what the category was, 81 to 90%. So we've got a lot of surveys, a lot of different categories. We can provide all of these charts to council. Some of you were on council when we did these, but for the newer ones, that we can provide these surveys.
Thank you.
Mr. Zerlag, if we were to do more specificity on the brochure, could it still be in the same single fold, or do we have to go to the triple fold, which would increase the cost of doing it? Councilwoman Beltramini had some specific things that she wanted added in here or changed, and I was just looking at the format of it and looking to see how much room there was to add or subtract things.
I think we could probably make it fit on a triple fold.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Slater?
Could I get the timeline on when this brochure should go out and when the absentee ballots are going to go out?
Tony can respond to that.
Okay. The absentee ballots are being printed and handled through Oakland County because of school elections that are going to be running in other communities. So we are somewhat dependent on Oakland County for the actual delivery of the ballots to the City of Troy. With that in mind, we have to be mindful that the brochure has or should get out to the voters prior to the absentee ballots. The ballots, I would estimate, will come from Oakland County through our printing systems in probably the week between Christmas and New Year. The importance of having the brochure approved at this meeting or very shortly hereafter is we need them printed before ballot printing so that when we are told our ballots are going on the press, we will release the brochure so that it gets to the households before the ballots. So therefore, the timetable is very, very tight. I would estimate that the ballots will make it to the households the first week, or it's very latest, the beginning of the second week of January.
Yes, Councilman Beltrame, want to follow up?
That would be 6 weeks before the election. They're going to have that much time for AVs?
Customarily, we don't delay. We move as fast as we can on everything. We wouldn't typically hold anything like this up. Because there are less ballots being printed, yes, they will be out sooner than they normally would be if it was a county-wide election. So you are looking at about a 6-week advance.
If the approval of the brochure wouldn't come until the meeting of the 23rd, that would back everything up, correct? I mean, 21st, excuse me, 21st.
It will be very tight. I would have to check with the printer, but I do believe that ballots could make it on the press prior to the brochure. At that point in time, we would probably hold the ballots up, even though that's something we never have done before. That would truly have to be a directive, I would think, of Mr. Zerleg or council.
Okay.
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Howard.
Just to follow up on that, all things being equal, when would you recommend mailing the brochure?
I would recommend that the brochure go out the very first week of January, the January 5th date.
Mayor?
Councilman Slater?
I think it's very important that we get as much information to the people that we can. I like some of the ideas that Councilwoman Beltramini brought forward. I think it's imperative that we make it as clear as we possibly can to the people. So I think we need to put some good thought into this brochure.
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I have a couple questions. One is still for the clerk, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
The two-step process, the request for an absentee, would those letters then go out first? I know you have some who are of an age or are on your list where you are just simply send that form. Could you explain that piece before the real ballots themselves?
The permanent absentee voter application, which is mailed to a permanent listing with approximately 13,000 names on that, is mailed by request of the voter at this point in time. Predominantly, it is those individuals 60 and older. However, it is not restricted to that. Those applications will be mailed on this Thursday, so they will be leaving the printer. They're slated to go. Everything is set, so they'll be out of here and in the homes probably by Friday. First day by law that we can accept those absentee ballot applications is this Thursday, and that's the timing associated with that. So they are already printed and ready to go.
So folks will be aware that an election is coming up when they receive that?
That is correct.
Okay. And
now, Mr. Zerleg wanted to add something.
I never want to interrupt one of my bosses, so I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
Did you want
please.
him to?
No, because
on
my next
that point, and then she'll make her next point.
A point I want to make is that it's great to have specificity in this document. However, it is a multi-year plan, if you will. And we believe that we're accurate in our declining revenue line with our assumptions. In fact, I was at a symposium today in Oakland County. Mr. Bob Datto, the Deputy County Executive, indicated that it's his office's projection that before municipalities in the county get to a level of taxable value that we enjoyed in 2008-9 is going to take until about 2025 or 30. Okay, so we think we're pretty accurate in that respect. But the other big area where we receive revenue from is the state of Michigan. And the state of Michigan is in dire straits financially. They've used stimulus money to plug holes in a general operating budget, which means the holes are going to be there again next year. I've also heard that it's so bad at the state level that the funding available for road construction programs from the federal government requires a 20% match, and the state of Michigan may not be able to have enough money to cover that 20% match to leverage funds. That would be very bad for the city of Troy and the state of Michigan. Having said that, if the state of Michigan again reduces state revenue sharing, these projections that we have could be liberal, and if we specify areas to be cut, they could well be greater. That's why we spoke about layoffs occurring in certain departments where we knew there would still be a department left, primarily in the police department for emergency services only, as well as the fire department, but did not indicate exactly what areas would go. Of course, we'll do what you like, but that's just something else you may wish to consider.
Okay. Councilwoman Kerwin?
To the left side, on maintain activities, I know that Councilmember Beltramini brought up a whole lot of points. That was actually way too much for me. But on some of this language, like maintain activities, I'm just wondering why that word was chosen over maintain services. Now, I know that this is not the high level of services that was indicated in the original wording. But I'm wondering why activities over services?
Activities would still be maintained. Well, let me back up.
Okay.
If we said that we'd maintain services, that connotes that everything that we do now would be the same. Even with the millage passage, we're not going to have the same service levels in various departments, but we'll still have, again, the community center and the museum and the library will still have activities in those areas, but it wouldn't be full service. That was the reason for that usage.
I guess I felt that the qualifier, when this was originally done, where it said high level of service, was the qualifier, and when that would be removed, it would be maintained. You could even put some services. I understand that the services, and I would hope our residents will, our services are not going to look the same as they do today. There's just a fact. However, activities to me sounds a little fluffy.
We didn't want to mislead the voter because our objective is to maintain the same service levels, if you will, for the police and fire members, for the police, the fire, and public works departments. Other departments will not have the same level of service. So we used a different term for it. We could say maintain some services at the Troy Museum, the library. Mayor, that was the reason for the difference.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Councilman Slater?
First of all, could I get the answer to the $158 issue?
Yes, Mayor and Council, the 996 should be 956.
956?
Everything else checks out. 158.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Slater.
Well, I'm new at this, so I want to get this this issue rolling because I think it is important that we put out a brochure and educate the public as much as we possibly can. So I'm going to move the resolution with the addendum red portions that were supplied to us at the beginning of the meeting, and with the 956 instead of the 996 number. And then, if it gets seconded, I'd like to discuss it a little further, if I could.
I'll support.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we move the resolution that is in the agenda on the special election village question brochure with the addition of the changes that are in red provided at the table here, and the change to 956 in the second to the last question. Discussion?
Mayor.
Councilman Howard.
One of the things that I'm not comfortable about is stating what a no vote means. And the reason why I say that is I don't know that anybody on this table can claim that this council has come to a consensus what we will do if this fails. I think that is still up in the air. I think that the approach on a brochure like this needs to be bigger picture. And I would be much more comfortable if it said something to the effect of what Mr. Zerlag says in his preambles when he talks about the situation we're in. Lay out the situation, we forecast that there's going to be this shortfall. This is a possible solution to that. If it fails, these other solutions have been suggested. And you can even say that council has not determined the complete impact of a no vote at this time, because that's true. The only way that this no vote column is true is if council is on record as stating it as such. I mean, as we know, there are a plethora of other opportunities, many of which involve raising revenue from other sources, whether you do it by a fee or a tax. It's still some sort of a revenue enhancing, whatever you want to call it, but it still costs people more to have the same service delivered to them. So I would rather see us back up, take a bigger picture approach, lay out the problem, lay this out as a potential solution, and then all of these details and charts that we've seen over the last few months, those are excellent things that can be put in a library and on the internet. I know many of them already are. I would also say that every citizen of the city does have the opportunity to use the internet and to visit City Hall. And to clarify what I mean, the library provides internet service for all residents and non-residents alike. So I think it's going to be very difficult for us to completely ascertain what a no vote means, because we haven't even crossed that bridge at this time.
Further comments? Mayor Pro Tem Fleming?
Thank you. The first speaker tonight struck a chord with me regarding what the no vote means, similar to Councilman Howard here. Have some of the same concerns. As a council person, at this point, I am not in a position to say if, and this could fail, and that's what we have to realize, that the 1.9 mils may not pass. If it passes, I think the yes vote column is clear. I have some concerns, real concerns as a council person, what a no vote means. And I'm not prepared to sign up to say if the 1.9 fails, that we're definitely putting a stake in the ground, that we're going to close the library and lay off all personnel, close the Troy Museum and lay off all personnel, close the Lloyd A. States Nature Center and lay off all personnel, close the Troy Community Center and lay off all personnel, reduce city services, plus drastically take these other actions in the police and fire department. I'm not sure we know exactly what that looks like yet, because if this were to fail, I think we would be scrambling as a city council, looking again and doing everything we possibly could to maintain every service we could in this city. And we might be looking at it a little differently. It appears to me that we're going at this looking as if this is going to pass, so we don't have to worry about the no. The reality is it may not pass. And are we as a council sitting here putting a stake in the ground saying, this is what we're going to do? That concerns me, because really I think if it doesn't pass, we might be looking at this differently. We'd be tweaking some things, but I'm not convinced that we would be taking all of these actions. Absolutely. We have talked a lot about the parks and recs. That's a big budget. There are other areas that we need to be looking at.
The last time we had a budget study session and we sat down as a council, went through line by line and ascertained that we would ask for a raise in fees in certain areas. There were some areas where fees were suggested that we could not do, and so we were not able to do that. Also, the amount in fees was not anywhere near enough to make up the difference in the revenue that we needed to continue with the quality of the services in both in public safety and in the quality of life things that folks have come to the city and want to continue. I know that it is very difficult for many people, myself included, to say that we would have to do the things that the no vote means. But I, for one, would have to be prepared to do the things that are in the no vote column if we didn't receive the yes vote on the millage, because to the average homeowner, the increase would only be $38 a year. I think that when they look at what they get for their services, that they would be willing to vote yes on it. But if the majority of the voters in Troy said no, I think that they would have to know that there are only a certain number of things that we can do to balance the budget. And if we don't balance it, just as Mr. Zerleg said, the state will appoint someone to come in, receivership, and balance the budget for us. Then we would have no choice at all, because we wouldn't be deciding, someone else would decide for us. And we've looked at these numbers, we've looked at the proposals, we've looked at all the information from, what was it, in September, was it September 28th or something?
Yes.
Every single 2 weeks, and sometimes every week on that. I think that a brochure should go out to the voters, and they would have opportunities to get additional detailed specific information in other sources, yes. But I think it's important to send something out to them, because that's what we've always done, is send something out when a vote comes. Yes, Councilman Kerwin?
Regarding the comments from Mayor Pro Tem, you know, we did, the majority of this council, not our new members, but the majority did do a ranking. When we ranked, it really was public safety. That was our commitment, was to public safety. And when you look down at the no, that's what we're trying to preserve is parts of public safety. But we know just about every 2 weeks, the news does get worse. And I think that that's why the city manager mentioned today's meeting with the Oakland County folks, which again brought it to the attention. So we know what the future can be like. And I think in point of fact, this certainly does make it simpler. Rather than piecemealing, well, perhaps we can try this or we'll try 55 hours, I think at the end of the day that the no vote would be just those things. And as simple as that, that's what this meant, and that's where we are. And I'm prepared to accept that. I frankly find it more telling than going through all of those columns and how much can we keep eking out of those different groups.
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Beltrame?
I go back to, if you read the first sentence before I got to the yes or no columns, in what I wrote, it said, stop with the first yes and the first no. You're going to either levy and retain all those services, or you're going to say no, and I would not say many, I would say all. City services will be cut and some eliminated. If you do not want the specificity of anything in there, that's sufficient and use the rest of the brochure to explain how we got here and what it will mean to the average taxpayer.
Mayor?
Councilman Slater?
I don't disagree with that, but I'm looking at the brochure, and I haven't heard anybody say anything about their frequently asked questions, so I assume that we're okay with that. I haven't heard anybody say anything about the yes portion of the brochure, so I assume that we're okay with that. We're debating the no vote. What does that mean? So, from my point of view, do I believe what I've been told? And the answer is yes. I've looked at the numbers. I said this 2 months ago. I've looked at the numbers. I've looked at the data. I don't need to see any more. Every time I get something, it's worse. It's not better. So, I guess I believe that the no vote means what it says to me. And I guess I'm ready to proceed forward.
Other further comments?
Mayor?
On the, Councilman Howard?
And I may be misunderstood, but I just wanted to get clarification from the city manager that if the mill levy passes, or I should say the allowable tax increase up to 1.9 mils passes, and we levy that, is it truly the case that there are not going to be layoffs, service reductions, other things that may have an impact on the accessibility of the current government to residents? I just want to make sure that we're not being misleading, because I would hate for somebody to vote for this, and 5 years from now they say, well, why was such and such laid off in such and such department after this passed?
There are still going to be layoffs, even with the millage increase. I have a consultant who's already spoken essentially to every department head in the city, and in fact I placed both assistant managers and Peggy Sears to assist Mr. Carlisle in his discussions with the department heads. And the reason for those interviews was to see if the city of Troy could be more cost efficient in how we operate. We don't just look at saying we have less money now, so let's just cut the number of people that we have and provide the same level of service. We look at how we provide the level of service. And there are some departments, unlike police, fire, and public works, those jobs are pretty much insulated in terms of their workload from outside economic forces. And there's always going to be people that call the police department. There's going to be a need for fire suppression and fire prevention activities. There's going to be a need to maintain our infrastructure. But the other departments, we want to take a look at to see if there would be a more cost-efficient method of delivering that service. And so, phase one essentially took place last week with layoff notices in the building and engineering departments. Those would have happened regardless of any millage. If the millage passed last month, we still would have done that because it's more of a function of workload. But now we think we're better postured to compete with the private sector in those areas, in the building and engineering departments. I think we've gone from 21 full-time personnel in the building department to now about 13. And one thing else I'm doing, it'll be effective either the end of this month or beginning January 1st, is to take the zoning administration and code enforcement away from the building department, so all their function is going to be is building inspections and plan review. When we go out to look at the private sector to see what that cost would be, it'll be a more one-on-one or more level playing field for us to compete favorably with the private sector by doing that, because there's no fundings that come in inspecting areas for blight like the code enforcement officer does. We're also looking, as Mr. Lamorado indicated, at the possible privatization of our entire golf course operations. But I was at the pre-bid meeting and I told all the bidders that unlike some cities that have the department heads compete in tandem with the private sector, we're going to have the private sector give us a bid, open it up, and then see if we can beat it internally with our own employees. I thought that was only fair. The private sector can look at our budget document and know exactly what our personnel service costs are, what our maintenance costs are, depreciation and so forth. And so I thought it would be fair for us to know what they said they can charge for performing that same function. So the short answer is yes, there will be layoffs, regardless of whether a millage increase is passed. But in the areas of police, fire, and public works, we want to still provide full service levels. That's not to say there will be the full complement of employees that we currently have. We will not have layoffs in those areas, but when there is attrition, we'll take a look to see if there could be any combination of functions to do it more efficiently. But the bottom line will be that we still provide that full service level.
Councilman Horak, did you have a follow-up on that? Okay. Councilman Fleming?
First of all, I'd just like to commend the city management and staff for the job you're doing. This is not easy. It's always easier to manage when there are ample funds. Okay? So all the steps you're taking, you're doing the right things, and you're doing exactly what the private sector is doing and has been doing for some time. You know, and right here in this city and all around the state and all around the country. So these steps are absolutely necessary. Publicizing what you're doing and the steps you're taking are going to go a long ways in potentially getting this millage through, okay, because you have to do that. You can't just rely on the millage. You're doing the right things, take as much cost out as you possibly can, downsize where you can, because we're all doing it. So many households are doing it and businesses all across this city. My concern still is what a no vote means. I can't think of a worse time, economic time, to go in for a tax increase, and I know most of you are going to agree with me. You know, we're just trying to survive here and maintain a level of service. I agree that we've chosen the right things to maintain the safety and vitality of the city are so important. We can't compromise on that. So we've got our priorities right. I'm still just really concerned that we are saying exactly what we're going to do with if this millage doesn't pass, what a no vote means. And in my mind, I still haven't got my mind completely around what a no vote really means, Mr. Zerlak. And I know you and I have had a lot of conversations about this. And as one vote here, I can't say that for sure if this millage fails that we're going to be closing the library and nature center and all those things. I again think we'll be looking at this all over again. That may be the end result. I think regardless of what happens, it's going to look differently. The museum, the library, the historical site, they may be looking differently. But to close the door, if this millage doesn't pass, I think is pretty drastic measures to say today definitively we're going to do that. That concerns me.
If I may, it is a 5-year look, a 60-month look down the line, and we took our revenues that are believed to be accurate and expenditures, which we thought was a safe assumption to assume a 2% increase a year, and looked at that differential or that delta, and not the first year or the second year, but down the line, we would, within that 60-month period, we would be closing down these facilities unless the city council authorized, like taking down all of our fund balance or canceling all capital projects that we currently have in reserve, and that would then cause a delay in the projection.
Mayor.
Councilman Beltrame?
Mr. Zerlak, I believe your numbers. And you've seen all of the scratch paper of various ilk that I have shredded trying to prove you wrong. I do believe that if we want to preserve public safety, the things that we enjoy and the things that add to our quality of life in a more social way will go away, at least for a while. And that will not save you the entire line from that budget either, because there will be maintenance costs until those facilities are either reopened or sold. And that is a given. You have said, and I've done my own private checking, that even if you combine, contract, most of the departments in City Hall, you will still not save enough to fill this 10% gap in next year's budget, nor the 10% gap in the year following. So I believe the no's. I don't like them, but I believe them. And I think that we will be in a position where we have no other choice. My concern to the rest of my colleagues in this, voting to approve this as it is written now, I think it is ineffective. And that most concerns me. I don't believe it gives the average citizen all of the information that they need. And I agree with Councilman Howrleck that everybody has some access to the internet, however inconvenient that may be. But if we are paying the money to mail something to someone's home, shouldn't it tell them something? And shouldn't it tell them something and enough information that they feel like they want to get more to make up their own mind, or that they have enough if they're a broad brush person? This I don't believe does that. But I do believe the numbers.
Further discussion? Mr. Zerlich, I need to ask a question on the part about what efforts have been put in place to lessen the impact of the reduced revenue stream. I know that you are working with the employees on getting concessions. If there were sizable concessions that come along before this is printed, would we be able to include a line in there that would indicate that, to further indicate to the voters that that's another avenue that was pursued?
That's a very good point, Your Honor, and the answer is yes, I'd like to do that. If I get it's called a letter of understanding. If we can get that from various employee groups, I'd love to indicate, such as the Troy Command Officers Association or the ASME or Troy Fire Service Officers Association, which has already indicated a 5% increase or decrease. I'd like to indicate that in the brochure as examples.
Okay. I think that would be something that it's not here, but if we were going to approve a brochure tonight, I think we should have something that says that if that happens, I know there's timing of when that might occur and when the brochure has to be printed, but I'd like to have that option if it's available, if the timing is correct, because that is one thing that I know we've had people at this council table talk about, and we've had citizens talk about too. So I think that would be another factor that we could add in there. So I thought I'd bring that up too.
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Beltrame?
Then I would recommend that you amend the motion, because it simply says this version laid on the table tonight with the corrected number.
That's why I was asking this at this point. I'd like to amend the motion to state that an amendment to the brochure, that we could add a sentence in the fourth question that has to do with employee concessions, should that occur before the brochure is printed. Is that clear enough? Okay. Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin. Discussion of the amendment? Anyone? Okay, you folks ready for a vote on that with the, we have a vote on the amendment first, Mrs. Bartholomew, is that correct? Okay.
Mayor?
Oh, yes, Councilman Howard?
Could you just clarify that again, so I've got this written down right?
On question that says what efforts have been put in place to lessen the impact of the reduced revenue stream, a sentence or two could be added in there in that section should concessions from the employees come in agreement before this brochure is printed, that we could add that in. I don't have the exact wording because I don't know what's going to happen there, but
I'm meeting with the different groups all the time.
right. I just thought we should have that option rather than be tied into not putting that in here. I think it would be an important factor. Is that all right, Councilman Howard?
It is, yeah.
Okay. The vote on the amendment? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Councilman Fleming?
Can we clarify, when we put that in, it would really be substituting for point number 3 under item number 4 on frequently asked questions. Could we be really clear, though, what concessions have been received? Could be a percentage or whatever, but it needs to be not concessions were received, but clearly identified dollar amounts and so forth. I just want to make sure that's there. It can be a percentage or dollar or both.
Sure.
From each unit.
Right.
Okay.
We're talking about a percent of payroll essentially, or
Yes.
something that would reduce payroll costs.
Okay.
Yes.
That would be, it actually is in question 4.
Question 4, item 3.
Right. Well, I don't know where it would come in precisely. They'd have to figure out where to slip it in. Okay.
Your Honor, members of council, it could also be in the form of a dollar amount of various groups.
Okay.
Okay. Vote on the amendment, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilman Beltramini?
Yes.
Amendment passes. And the vote then on the main motion?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
Just a suggestion also in the same area, to clarify it and to lessen confusion, if you could include the words full-time, where it says City of Troy reduced staff by 11.5% over the last 6 years. I believe we refer to full-time. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. I'll verify it. Thank you.
Because I'm looking at your chart here, and I want it to be consistent with what we have here.
Do we need another amendment? Councilman Howard?
I will make that amendment to insert the words full-time before staff and after reduced in that bullet point.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilman Beltramini, that we insert the word full-time in the bullet point that says the City of Troy reduced full-time staff by 11.5% over the last 6 years.
Your Honor, the members of council, that number will be going up. If this brochure is distributed the first week in January, it will be going up by the equivalent of 7 full-time people,
Incorrect percentage.
whatever that percentage is.
Councilman Beltramini, are you suggesting we need another amendment?
Well, that would be my question for the clerk. If that 11.5 percentage will change, do we need an amendment to allow that to happen, or just to blanketly require that all of this information be accurate by the time it goes out? That's good.
Accurate is good.
If the mayor were to state that as a clarifier, it could travel with this amendment?
That by the time the brochure is printed, that the percentage is accurate at that time? Is that
By
correct?
the time it goes out. By the time it goes out.
At the time it goes out? Well, it would have to be when it's printed.
No, because in this case it doesn't.
Oh, when it goes out? Okay.
Just that all
Mayor?
information is
Yes, Councilman Howard.
And just again, as a point of clarification, do we know what our full-time head count, staff count is right now?
Mr. Zerline?
I think it's around 435.
Okay, that's what I have. Okay, that makes sense. And that's before the 7 layoffs?
That's before that, yes.
Okay, okay, just want to make sure.
Right.
Okay, Mrs. Bartholomew on the amendment?
Councilmember Howard?
Inserting the word
Yes.
full-time?
Kerwin?
Inserting the word full-time.
Did we vote on that?
No, that's what we're on right now.
Okay, yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Any others? Okay, then on the main motion?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
No.
Fleming?
No.
Howard?
No.
Motion passes. The next item then is the interlocal agreement with the city of Sterling Heights to use the use of the gun range.
Mayor,
Councilman Slater?
I'll move the resolution as printed.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Slater, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's another fine example of how we are trying to move as a region to provide services. And so my compliments to our fine chief of police and staff. So it's a good direction. Thank you.
Mrs. Bartholomew, vote?
Councilmember McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. H9 is the traffic committee recommendations. There's A and B, the all-way stop signs at the intersection of Larchwood and Austin, and the establishment, of additional no stopping standing parking zone on the west side of Anvil from Forge to the driveway at 3668 Forge.
Mayor,
Councilman Howard?
I will move both resolutions as A and B as printed on the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve A and B as printed in the agenda. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion passes. Section 36, park naming.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Kerwin?
Be it resolved that Troy City Council hereby directs staff to display proposed park names for the park in Section 36, along with background information at the community center for not less than 60 days. And be it further resolved that Troy City Council hereby directs staff to forward all comments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Be it finally resolved that Troy City Council directs the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to hold a public hearing prior to making a recommendation to City Council.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman McGinnis, that we approve the resolution as printed. Discussion? I found the list of names very interesting, and I picked out my favorite, but I'm keeping it to myself. The process is going to move forward. It's always fun to see the kinds of names that are suggested. Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. Does the council have any items they wish to have removed to consider after?
Mayor?
Councilman Howard?
I4B.
I4B. Any others? Okay. Would you like to move the resolution excluding I4B, Councilman Howard?
Okay, I will move the resolution excluding I-4B, which is to approve all of the consent agenda items other than that I-4B.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Howard, seconded by Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Fleming, that we approve all the items in the consent agenda except I-4B, which we will be considered after this vote. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. I-4B, Councilman Howard, was the resolution of the Troy School District Bus Transportation Services.
Thank you, Mayor. My only, I'm a little uncertain about the duration of this. It looks like it's simply awarding it in perpetuity. There's no time on here. I'm curious as to what the intent is.
There's no time limit. Would you like me to call on Mrs. Anderson?
Yes, please. Sure, that's fine.
Mrs. Anderson, is there a time limit here?
Prior to the school district outsourcing the bus services, we did have an agreement that went into as long as no conditions changed. Our intent would be that this same agreement, as long as no conditions, prices change, that we would continue to do that for as long as that happens, continue to contract that way.
Thank you, Mayor. From a policy standpoint, I would prefer to see this bid out. So I'm not in favor of the resolution on the agenda this evening. At the very least, I would like to see it with some sort of a sunset date, so we can at least review it here on council to see if we want it to continue.
Mr. Zerlei?
Would it be acceptable if we reviewed the charges every 2 years and compared them to other lines that offer the service?
I'm guessing this year we need to have something pretty soon, don't we?
Well, we have comparative analysis on the informal quotes from First Student, Indian Trails, and Lakefront lines. We were by far, with First Student, the cheapest.
Well, I guess I was alluding to the fact that you probably wouldn't want it to go out to bid this year because you're essentially using those services already. And so I think that if it would come back to council in 2 years, that would be acceptable. But before 2011 season, though.
Sure, we can do that. Modify the resolution accordingly, that it's for a period of 2 years.
Yes. Mrs. Anderson, I see you signaling.
If it is before the 2011 year, that would be 1 year. Because the use is at the start of the year. Certainly could be
Well, you're asking 2012 then?
Correct. Before the start of the 2012.
If that's acceptable, we can make that happen.
That would be fine. And we, excuse me, will we use these services, I'm sorry, which months of the year again, specifically?
January and February.
Okay, I was thinking December, my mistake. So yeah, that would be correct, right, okay.
Not enough snow except last year.
Yeah.
We'll come back in 2012.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need a change in the resolution?
I would think so.
Yes. Councilman Howard, do you want to move the resolution with the change inserted for 2012?
Somebody else can make the resolution, but I'll certainly vote in favor of it.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Slater?
I'll move the resolution with the addendum that we'll revisit it in 2012.
To review in. Okay. Moved by Councilman Slater. Do we have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we approve the resolution with the addendum that we review the resolution again in, the contract again in 2012. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Slater?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have memorandums and future council agenda items, council referrals, council comments. Councilwoman Kerwin, I think you wanted to say something about the museum or something?
And traditionally,
hanging of the greens.
It used to be hanging of the greens, and I know traditionally, Councilmember Beltramini always attends. I know this year you had, you needed to be someplace else, and so we did miss you there. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. It always is. I really wanted to point out the volunteers. Fabulous volunteers. The Troy Garden Club, in fact, are the ones. I brought you all back an ornament that was handwritten by members of the Troy Garden Club. All of the proceeds that came from that ornament benefit the Troy Historical Museum. Of course, we had the Troy Historical Society members, many of whom were with us tonight, who also volunteered at the event. Our Athens singers, I think 4 of us had an opportunity to see the singers recently in the chambers last week. And we also had young volunteers. Hats off to Project LEAD and the National Honor Society students who came out. The place was filled with hundreds and hundreds of students. And of course we had family members and Santa. Now, I do want to point out that today we had flurries, and I have to credit Lorraine Campbell for that, because one of the things she did was, all right, children, let's clap, and it will make it snow. And I was the only one up there going, no, no snow, because of the de-icing. So there was a little bit of flurry action, and that's just enough for us to have that. But hats off to everyone who made what a wonderful event that was. And I was pleased to see the city manager there. And he received, I believe, a signed copy of the book that was illustrated today.
That's correct. In fact, the book goes for $28, but if Lorraine Campbell and Fred Barnard sign the book, it's $30. So.
And for you, a special deal, $30.
$30.
So again, the book is wonderful. I think Lorraine Campbell is so talented in what she does. And all of staff, it really just showcased what a gem it was. There were many, many people there. I wish we all could have been there for that day. I know we're very, very busy. So I just wanted to point that out. And enjoy your ornament.
Thank you. I was going to put a plug in. You two have already stolen my thunder here. For the book on sale at the museum and at the Community Affairs office for $28. It's $30 if I get it signed. For Fire Calls and Station Stories, an illustrated history of Troy's volunteer fire department. I can't wait to go and get mine, and I have to get several copies because I know my son is going to want one, because when he saw my copy of the history of Troy, there have been several books written about the history of Troy over the years. Lois Lance and several other books are written. He'd always say, I have to have a copy too. And so I'd have my copies and then he'd have his. And now that Austin is into that and studying it in school, I'll probably have to end up getting 3 or 4 copies. So, but I recommend very highly to people that they get that. I think that's wonderful. Any other council comments?
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Beltramini?
I have a bit of business, and it's so important I wrote it out, which, as you know, I don't usually write out my comments, but as part of the SEMCOG Executive Committee meeting last Friday, there was a presentation by Dwight Dean, the director of the Detroit Census Bureau office. And he talked about the importance of the census. And the decennial census, we all know, is a constitutional requirement. And we are constitutionally required to count residents. That dates from the time of the Constitution when most of us were immigrants. And so we count both immigrants and citizens. residency is defined, and that's why it's important, and it's important to say this now, because we have so many people that go elsewhere for the winter. Residency is defined as whatever location that person or family considers home most of the time. People who spend part of the year in other locations need to answer the census in the area where they are most often and that they consider home. Census questionnaires will not be forwarded by the Postal Service. If the rest of your mail is forwarded, your census will not be. You will get a separate one there, but it will then apply to wherever you are. So questionnaires are sent to every residential address. Therefore, people having multiple dwellings will receive multiple surveys, but should complete only the one for where they reside most of the time. If the questionnaire for the most of the time dwelling is not received, residents can depend on a census worker appearing later in the spring or summer to inquire and assist in completion of the census. Foreclosures and vacant homes will be an issue, particularly here in Southeast Michigan. The Census Bureau will confirm the vacancy, but the residents need to answer the census where they are if they no longer have a permanent residence. For example, individuals or families who have had to move out of their home and left their home vacant and have moved in with other family members or friends, even for a temporary period of time. When your friend fills out that survey, have them count you, because you are there, and that is as close to a home as you have at that point. If that is not done, it will compromise the totals for overall population, congressional districts, allocation of funding and services, and we all are collecting the services. So fill out the questionnaire for where you are, even if you don't have a permanent home. If you're living with your brother, have your brother fill out the numbers for you and he. Census materials are available in multiple languages. So if you can't read or understand English, you can get them in other languages. And the Oakland County Commission, as many counties in Michigan, have already formed, through the commissioners, a complete count committee, which will assist in getting the word out. But I wrote this out so you can attach it, because it is so important. One of the other things that was...
Could I ask a question about
yes.
that? When are they going to send those? Do they have a timetable?
April 1 is the count date, so they will go out in February or March.
Okay, thank you.
Holidays and safe driving. Fatal crashes in Oakland County last year were 54. Of those, 19 were alcohol related. In Wayne County, it was a third. In Monroe County, it was 10 of 22. In Macomb, it was 13 of 37. In Livingston County, it was 7 of 15. In most counties in Michigan, it averages almost a third. So if you are going to host, collect the keys. If you drink, call a cab. Good news, on the SEMCOG website there is this brochure that talks about the economic brochure of the border and what a huge percentage of America's commerce comes right here through Southeast Michigan, which primes us to use our wits and bring ourselves back. That's it.
Any other council comments? Just one, from another one from me, and that is when you were talking about the fatal car crashes in the area due to people drinking. Just recently, we have had 2 fatal car crashes in Troy, neither which had as far as we know, I don't have all the data, but neither which were involved with drinking and driving. And so my comment is for everyone to be very cautious at all the intersections, especially when we get to the bad weather that is coming. Because as we know, you can be very alert, but maybe a driver coming another way is not as alert as you are. And so when you're at those red lights, or when you're crossing and the light starts to turn or something, I think that people should be more cautious. Sometimes we think, well, nothing can ever happen to us, but we had 2 deaths in Troy, of Troy residents, just recently. So I think that everyone should be more cautious. And our prayers go out to the families of those that have lost loved ones. Thank you. Any other council comments? Okay. Council's been adjourned.